Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 153. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge on the CGS forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. You can try Booberry. You can sing like the Smurfs. Even dream of the Blue Man Group, but unless you have your atomic particles separated, you have no hope of waking up all Dr. Manhattan. So says the sensei of the Whatnot Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
We're actually going to be talking about Watchmen on our next episode. We talk a little bit about it during listener voicemails today, though. What happened was this week I got a little overambitious, considering the fact of how tight my schedule was this week, and we're actually a day late on getting out this show. It's St. Patrick's Day right now, and Jim and I are actually recording this show to put out tonight because we need to get you a show. We're going to be talking about some speeding bullets on this episode. We have a ton of books, so please check the show notes on the ones we're going to be talking about, because I wanted to get us talking about a lot of current stuff. We have an interview that we recently did with Fabian Nicieza, where we talk about Robin, the ending of that run. We talk about Batman Gotham Gazette, Batman Dead. We talk a little bit about what Azrael, we do a tease of Azrael, which is going to be coming out this week. So I wanted to make sure to get that out right now because that interview was done recently. We have a Watchmen episode that's going to be coming up. We do listener voicemails on this one. Our Watchmen episode is going to be next week. I have 14 pages of notes already for the Watchmen episode, and it's only the first half of the film. I was going to do that for this one, but I had no idea with Speeding Bullets-wise, you and I were going to go so crazy talking about the current books, but how could we not? There's been so much going on lately. So it's funny how your plans change. I would like to put out our next episode on Sunday or Monday. That's my current plan. And please check the website or the forum for details on what that looks like. I'm in my report card week right now. My report card weeks, I should say. I've got to get grades done for the kids. I've got to get report cards done. So it's the reason why this was a day late. I'm trying to juggle a whole lot right now to get the show out to you. And we had a lot of fun recording tonight. Happy St. Patty's Day to everybody. If you got this one, probably by the time this is released, it's going to be the next day. But to any of you out there that celebrated, I hope you had a good time, and happy St. Patty's Day to you. We wish you well. I want to remind everyone about the Planet Karen initiative that Gail Simone had talked about. There's still links in the show notes. If you didn't get a chance to participate, she lost quite a bit, and it's a great chance for you to go over and check that out. If you didn't hear us on the last episode, there's a direct link to the Newsarama article where Gail Simone talks about what she went through, and I just want to let people know, if you didn't hear it in the last episode, definitely please check that out and consider donating. I donated to it. I know, Jim, you're donating to it. It's something that I think is really an important cause, and I know a couple of our listeners already sent me emails saying that they had donated as well, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys participated and helped that person out, because I think that's really great that as comics fans, we're helping out somebody who's in the comic industry who lost everything. And this with the economy where it is right now, it's really our chance to kind of do something for somebody else. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. We're continuing to support the Hero Initiative, which is www.heroinitiative.org, or call 310-909-7809. Do something to help out creators who have been entertaining us for years. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Jim, the Comic Book Podcast Companion has been solicited. It's a softcover book. It's by Tomorrow's Publishing. That's TWOMORROWS Publishing. It's $9.57. It's written by Eric Houston. Comic book podcasts have taken the internet by storm, and now you get a chance to go behind the scenes of 10 of today's top comic book podcasts via all new interviews with the cast of Around Comics, Word Balloon, Quiet Panelologists at Work, Comic Book Queers, iFanboy, The Crankcast, The Collected Comics Library, The Pipeline Podcast, Comic Geek Speak, and tomorrow's own TuneIn Podcasts. Also featured are new interviews about podcasting and comics on the internet with creators Matt Fraction, Tim Seeley, and Gene Colan. You'll also find a handy guide to what you'll need to start your own podcast and an index of more than 30 great comic book podcasts. And I know we're featured in the index as well, which is very interesting. So it's great. It's great that Tomorrows are making a publication that supports the comic book podcasts. I mean, to me, that's kind of neat. This is where comic book podcasts have gone now, that are doing a book on comic book podcasting in general. That's really great. So I'm going to read that because I'm a fan of those shows. Comic Geek Speak is the show that helped break me into it. But a lot of, around comics, those guys, we hang out with those guys every time we're in Chicago. Word Balloon, I'm a big fan of John Suntress. Comic Book Queers, I listen to iFanboy, Crankcast. I mean, it's Collected Comics Library, Chris Marshall. The Pipeline Podcast with Augie DeBleek. It's just Tomorrow's Own podcast. I mean, that's for me, that's kind of a must-buy. So I already pre-ordered that, and I've got that all set. That's out this month. Brave and the Bold, number 23, is at a special discount. This is the one with Magog and Booster Gold, and they're offering it 50% off. It's $2.99 regularly, only $1.49. So, and that's, it's kind of a no-brainer. You don't need to pick up any other issues. Grab that one and see what these two do together. I'm excited for that one. And I know that's done by Booster Gold's writer, Dan Jurgens, so with a cover by Dan Jurgens and Norm Ratman. So, perfect. Whatever your shipping preferences, whatever your bag and boarding preferences, DCB service accommodates your collecting needs. Don't forget to check out In Stock Trades. This is one I picked up for my kids this week, and I wanted to chat with everyone about this. I've been ranting and raving that I want the Johnny DC stuff in trade. They did it with Tiny Titans. I grabbed Super Friends Justice for All. The first 7 Super Friends issues unite in a new collection of stories inspired by the red-hot line of action figures from Mattel. Filled with exciting all-ages adventure, this volume features the Justice League facing some of their greatest foes, including Amazo and Gorilla Grodd. Regularly $12.99, 37% off, only $8.18. I picked this up. I dropped it in my classroom. My kids have been passing this thing around like crazy. One of my kids said, I love DC. And I'm, smiling from ear to ear. But they're reading. They're enjoying it. They're drawing the characters. They're writing their own stories featuring the character, which is the whole point of reading material for kids, is that they use their imagination beyond the page. I love this as a teacher to see my kids geeking out over something that they're enjoying reading, passing it around and talking about it. It's not isolated reading. These kids are talking about something they enjoyed reading. And that, to me, is just stellar. I really love that.
Outstanding.
InStockTrades.com. Orders of $50 or more, free shipping. And it's really easy to do that kind of damage there. But it's great because you're getting everything at a discount. And free shipping means that you're not paying tax, you're not paying shipping. It's a way to go on that one. Thank you for supporting us, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Jim, we have a voicemail line. And we have a whole bunch of listener voicemails on this one that we got a chance to finally chat about. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show. I really like that kind of interactivity with the listeners. It's something we've always enjoyed on the show. We used to do it through emails. Now we've shifted over to voicemails. We get all of the voicemails on the show. You call in, it will be on the show. So call in, and we'd love to hear from you and get your thoughts, especially about comics you're enjoying right now, things that are going on in comics, comic news. All that stuff is great. So if you see something that you want to rant and rave about, please make sure to get it on the show. It's great. What kind of a podcast are we, Jim?
Well, top of the morning to you, Sean. This is Seamus or whatnot coming to you, and let me wish everyone a happy St. Patty's Day. The Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. If you're going over to something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Do you know what tears are, Jim? Tears are God crying. You know why God's crying, Jim? It's because of something you did.
Yeah, that's one of my bad accents.
No, I gotta be all kidding aside. I was chuckling the whole time. That was really good. I did not expect that at all. I figured you were just gonna do kind of like just a blatant regular spoiler warning. I had no idea.
Just when you think you know the answers, I change the questions.
Oh, jeez. Let's jump right into our interview with Fabian.
Can Batman escape? One hint: the worst is yet to come.
Joining us right now for this segment is very special guest, Fabian Nicieza. Did I get it right?
Well said. You got it perfectly.
Oh. Not Bill Sienkiewicz.
Not Bill Sienkiewicz.
I'm going to have to put that at the end of the interview because I really do feel like it does, and I even hesitated for a second, and it was rather funny. We're going to be talking with you about Robin, which has been outstanding, and your history with this character, because my understanding is you've been a big Robin fan. Is that correct?
Yeah, I like most Robin fans, many of us are closeted. I didn't come out of the closet until I was more of an adult, and I accepted my man love for Robin. And I guess I had to become secure enough in myself, and I guess once I hit the 50 million comics sold mark in my career, then I said it's okay to profess my love for Robin. It's okay. But yeah, it wasn't even so much a comic book thing, because I didn't get a lot of the comics he appeared in back in the late 60s, early 70s. It really started with the TV show, because that was one of the signature things that I remembered from when I first came to this country in 1966. I was about 4 years old, and I just loved the character because I couldn't be Batman. I was too little, but I thought I could be Robin. You know, it was easier to be Robin. And my brother and I had the Captain Action figures that were made back then, and then we got the Action Lads, and I had the Robin costume and all the Teen Titan costumes. And I had gotten some of the comics, but not a lot, because we didn't have a lot of money, so we could only get a few things. And then we got turned off to D.C. When a friend of my brother's, who he met at school, told him that those comics weren't cool. He should try these other cool comics called Marvel. So we started reading Marvel comics, and that was in the late 60s, 67, 68. But I kept revisiting Robin here and there. It was almost like on the side, on the sly. I wouldn't let my brother know that I was reading a comic book that had Robin in it. It could have been some of the Teen Titans stuff. Sometimes it was Batman or detective stuff, Batman family issues that I'd gotten. And then Teen Titans, when Teen Titans started rolling around again, in the early 80s is when I was in college by then. And I'd been writing and drawing a lot of stuff, and I'd been actually writing and drawing stories with Robin in it. I made a Robin costume for Halloween in college for like fraternity parties and all that stuff, and it came out really, really good. And I wore that, and there's a picture of me framed on one of my office shelves that I've said, you know, I will release someday, but really it has to be the right price, the right time. And no one's offered the money that it would take for me to release that picture.
After the Sienkiewicz thing you pulled on me, I might take up a donation to try and get that money.
You better take up a collection, because it may take a lot for me to reveal that picture, because it's like hairy-legged Robin, because I refused to shave my legs.
That might be my new passion.
It was good, though, because there was a girl dressed as Batgirl at a frat party, and I came this close to scoring with her, and she told me that she was going to wait for Batman later. So I couldn't even pick up the girl at the frat party. See, Robin couldn't even land the girl back then. So one of the first things I tried to do when I tried selling stories back when I was in college, I was submitting stuff to Marvel and DC blind, like an idiot, like most people do when they don't understand the process, which I certainly didn't at age 20 or 21. But I wrote a Robin story that must have drawn some interest on the part of the person who was then editing the DC Talent Showcase book. That was a man named Sal Amendola, whose artwork I really, really liked a lot from having read some of his work in Batman Family. And I actually went into the offices back when I was like a junior in college, and he had my story pinned to his bulletin board, and they weren't going to buy it and they weren't going to do it because the tone and all that stuff was just not appropriate, because, again, I was too young to even have a clue that you can't do a drug-related Robin story that gets kind of ugly and nasty. And expect them to publish it, because it just wouldn't have been appropriate. But he liked so much of what I did in it that he wanted to meet with me and talk to me and tell me that down the road, I should consider continuing to submit and understand better the process by what to do and what to write. So even back then, I actually took that story and remade it into a Nomad story that I sold for Marvel Comics Presents, which actually sprung a mini-series for Nomad and then a monthly series for Nomad, and the entire storyline that I had originally started for that Nomad stuff was always, in my mind, intended for Dick Grayson and Robin way back when. It ended up fitting Nomad a lot better than it would have Robin, but that just shows you how I was thinking of the character even back then when I was 20 years old, 21 years old, I always liked him. It was Dick Grayson more than Tim Drake, but I always liked everything about the concept of Robin, and I liked the Tim Drake character tremendously. I think Chuck Dixon did an absolutely fantastic job developing that character over a long, long body of work, a long period of time, which rarely gets to happen in comics, that a writer has an opportunity to work for that many years on a character, 7, 8 years straight on a character is very, very rare.
One thing that I really appreciated, you mentioned Chuck Dixon's Robin. You followed Chuck Dixon right away on Robin, and one of the things that I really liked that you did, you seamlessly organically it led into what you were doing with Robin. It really felt very smooth, and I appreciated that because you had your own story and your own thing that you were doing with Robin, but it felt very much like the same book that I had been reading previously. And I want to tell you how much as a long reader, because I've been reading Robin since Lonely Place of Dying when Tim Drake was first introduced. I mean, I've been a Batman fan. I go back like you do with the 60s show, which I had no clue was a spoof at the time.
Yeah, neither did I. To me, it was very, very life-threatening stories with those cliffhangers and
Absolutely.
the characters tied up to gigantic nuclear reactors. I thought for sure they're in trouble now.
And it's like years later I'm watching it now, and I realized very clearly that it was a spoof. But, I'm like, how did I not catch this was a spoof? Because I was so convinced this was the real deal. But going back to your work on Robin right now, I want to tell you how much I really appreciated how smooth that felt. Because a lot of times you get creative changes on a book. It's like a jarring creative change. It's not to say that I'll get used to the new creative team and I'll get really into it. This didn't have any of that for me.
Well, it was a combination of things. Number one, if it were a writer before me whose work I didn't think was right for the character, you probably would have seen a more jarring change. Robin hasn't had that many writers in his monthly book, but there might have been one thrown in there whose work if I had taken over right after that person had been writing, you would have seen a drastic tonal change. But you weren't going to get that drastic a tonal change between Chuck and myself, because we're all-time professionals. We understand what the job is and how to do the job. And number two, I like what Chuck has done with the character forever. Taking over for him was not necessarily pleasant for me because I knew that it was not happening under good circumstances. I didn't know the details of the circumstances, nor do I to this day. But clearly, obviously, it wasn't under pleasant circumstances. So it wasn't something that I relished doing. For the same token, Mike Martz, the editor, has been a friend of mine for many, many years, and I hired him to work for me at Acclaim, so I didn't want to leave him strung out, hanging, and he asked for my help, and I was willing to do it. So once that all cleared its way through, knowing that I was going to have to write it for X number of issues, and knowing that we were coming to a close, and knowing why it was coming to a close and where it was headed, made telling the story a lot easier. It made it very easy for me to say, we have to address all the things that Tim has gone through over the last few years, I guess since Identity Crisis, and not shirk away from them, not ignore them, not pretend they didn't happen. All of this weight has to fall on his shoulders now, because we know we're heading to a demarcation point, which is the end of this book and the start of something new. So, if that's the case, then now's the time to address it, because you have to start your something new with the character in a slightly different place than where he had been before. So it was tailor-made for someone to kind of write the kind of story I ended up writing.
Yeah, I just really want to say a big thank you to you for, I'm a Robin guy. I like Batman, I enjoy it, but for me, it was always Robin exceeded Batman. And especially, Tim Drake. When I got back into comics, it was at the 1 year later mark, and the beach and stuff, it drew me in. I went back, picked up all the back issues, I was reading all this stuff, and I was just so Robin happy that, as things are going on, it was just like, this is just this really, really cool character. And you told the story that I didn't want to see it until I read what you did. I always wanted Tim to remain this, the lighter, the bright bird kind of thing, and not get more standoffish, not have to, become more Batman-ish, keep the Tim Drake kind of like kid in him. But you told this great maturing and just coming of age story that every issue I'm reading this going, yes, yes, yes. And I'm chomping at the bit to see Tim's future in the DCU, see what happens to him next. So thank you very much.
I'm curious to see how they're going to handle the next step for him. Since I won't be writing it, I'm very curious to see what they're going to do, because it's a hammer that requires a subtle touch. And it's a very fine line between writing an incredibly intelligent character who is coming to understand what it takes to do the kinds of things that he is expected to do, not only by himself, but expected by others to do as well. The pressures that he's been under for so long, It takes a very subtle hammer to be able to walk that, and I'm curious as to what's going to happen with him, because my fear is that somebody won't be able to walk that fine line and make it too obvious one way or the other. You can't make him light. You can't make him light and snarky and happy-go-lucky. Not that he ever really was, anyway, as a character, unlike Dick. But you also can't make him uber villain either. You know. So we'll see what happens. I mean, a lot of the reaction from readers was very similar to what you had. The response we received has been overwhelmingly positive, but not happy positive, you know what I mean? It was positive in, like, they read something that made sense and was not pleasant and was tough, but they understood why it had to be told, you know? And I've answered on some message boards that if I had my preference, I'd rather be writing a more lighthearted Robin. I'd rather be writing a more emotionally secure and stable Robin, because to me that's much more in keeping with who the character is supposed to be. I'd rather be writing Damian as Robin than Tim as Robin, because right now Tim as Robin has reached the point that we just showed in the Search for a Hero arc, which was he can't be that Robin anymore. He just can't be. It makes no sense for him to be that after everything he's gone through. And those aren't things I did to the character, nor necessarily are they things I would have chosen to do to the character. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's had crap upon crap heaped upon him for quite a few years now, you know? Not even the death of his mom or the paralyzing of his dad, but everything that's happened to him since Identity Crisis has been one body blow after another. So I just felt that I couldn't ignore that as a writer and a person who really cares for the character. So if I was going to move him forward, I wanted to try to move him forward and be true to who he was, you know? And some people disagreed with that. Some people complained about it. They thought that he was being too much of a dick. And when I say too much of a dick, I don't mean Dick Grayson.
Right.
Too much of a penis. Can we say penis on the interview?
Sure.
My response to that was, well, yeah, I think you and I might be too at that point. You know, the other thing I wanted to do with him is that I've been around some incredibly intelligent people. I don't consider myself one of them, but incredibly intelligent people have a harder and harder time suffering mortal fools the more they're exposed to them and the older they get. And I do see Tim as an incredibly intelligent kid. And I think that he's reaching that logical age, 17, 18, 19, 20, where you're not mature enough to be an adult yet, but you think you are. And if you combine that with his incredible intelligence, then you're going to get a character who's going to start thinking that he knows better than everyone else, because he does usually, you know? And that can start to create slightly dangerous situations, which I was clearly alluding to throughout the entire storyline, even onto the last issue with the way he outsmarted Shiva. You know, sometimes you can be too smart for your own good, and maybe Tim will be. We'll see. I don't know.
I would definitely like to see a follow-up to that, because I really enjoyed those moments. It showed just how seriously he was taking the threat, which I really appreciated because of their past history and how rich that was, that he had to think a little outside the box and make sure that he had a chance to make it out of this because of his responsibilities to Gotham as well.
Yeah, and if I'd been able to keep writing the book as a monthly book, whether it was Robin or a different title, and if he stayed in Gotham, which in some ways, you know, it's kind of difficult to see that he could stay in Gotham for that much longer in light of everything that's going to be going on. But I would have played a lot more to that angle of him, that aspect of him. The kind of thing he did to Cavallo and Wise in order to get them under his thumb, and what he would have done to start using them. The way his relationship with Detective Specialist Jamie Harper would have developed as an immature, unrequited love interest on his part, but also someone that he works with and little by little starts to use because of her, you know, contacts in the force. All the way he treated Shiva, you know, would be the kind of thing he'd do a lot more of in terms of proactively preventing the crime or the confrontation before it happens. Because really, at the end of the day, he's still a 17-year-old kid. Even though he has tremendous training, he's still going to go up against people who are physically more capable than he is. So he's one of the few heroes I can think of who's smart enough to work his way around that.
I 100% agree.
And I kind of took all those, like the way he dealt with Shiva, and even some of the stuff he did with when he was going up against Ulysses as Anarchy, kind of like a Batman-esque style to it. It wasn't exactly the way Batman would have dealt with the situation, but there was definitely, threads from the training. It was the preparation, the pre-planning, the laying out what he's actually going to do, bam, 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 step by step. Especially that whole Shiva confrontation. Even the art scheme, was, he's very in the shadows, like in the beginning part when he steps out and his stance. There's more of a maturity to his presence. Even I really, that was something that's just we're talking about like the growth and evolution of Tim. I really saw this strong Batman influence coming out, especially these last couple issues.
And honestly, also a lot of that, I know you interviewed him recently, a lot of that is Freddie too, and what a great job he did in retailoring his artwork a little bit. One of the things I asked for him is a greater sense of place and a greater sense of mood, a greater sense of emotion that he could bring to his art, so that it wouldn't. I liked what he was doing during his first stint on Robin, but I wanted to see a maturation of the artist. I wanted to see the next step. And the next step for any artist after their initial introduction usually is in learning subtlety, in improving their use of camera angles, in improving their storytelling, in doing a better job with their environment so that you really get a feeling that this is taking place in a real place. And because Freddie has that kind of slightly manga art style, that a lot of the characters, even the adult characters, have a certain kind of stocky look to them, I wanted the city to look even more like a city, so that we're placing these slightly cartoonish figure style of drawing, as opposed to, like, let's say a Neil Adams or, someone doing photorealistic work is what I mean, then place it in a real city so that you really ground it in terms of how it looks. So that way then the more cartoonish style still has emotional weight and dramatic heft to it, because the reader's eye understands that this is quote unquote really happening. And Freddie, honestly, just every month in and month out under really, really tight deadlines, because we took the book over, it had missed a month of shipping. We were doing multiple issues a month. I did 9 issues of Robin in 7 months, I think it was, and he had to do 7 issues of Robin in like 6 months. So he really, really busted his hump, and I think he did a absolutely fantastic job, especially with his ability to make Gotham City feel like a real place to me. And I enjoyed that immensely, which makes all the other things work better. It makes those dramatic moments work better. It makes the tension feel more real. So all of it worked out really, really well. I was very, very happy with the run. I sure as heck hope that they put it into a trade paperback collection. I don't know if they're gonna or not, but I really hope they do, because I'm rarely all that thrilled with that much of my own work. I accept it for what it is, and I always look at the good and the bad in it, and I always find plenty of both. But in this particular run, I was really, really happy with it. Now, mind you, I haven't reread the whole thing in a chunk yet, because I usually wait a little while to do that. But I got from issue 175 through issue 183 sitting up by my bedroom night table. So I'm going to get to it pretty soon. I'm going to read it as a whole long flow and then see how it holds up. So if we do this interview again in a month, I may change my mind.
Well, actually, funny you say that, because getting ready for this interview, I read it all in just one chunk, sat right down and just one after another, just bam, 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 knocked them all out. And that for me really made me appreciate just the flow through that of we have couple story arcs going through, and just one feeds into the other, feeds in another. And there was even stuff that I had missed before that I was catching, like, oh yeah, here's a little clue right here. Oh, this is just it. I really just, absolutely love this. You're talking trade. I'd like to see this thing absolute, nice, blown up, just because of the beautiful artwork. I'd love to see this.
Get absoluted. Listen, you get some hard cardboard, okay? I'll get some tape, and we'll put it together, and we'll make our own absolute, because I guarantee you DC's not going to.
No, yeah, I agree, yeah. We're not gonna. I would love to see it, too, because a lot of, anytime you do an absolute, it's obviously you're doing it because of the art pieces at that particular point. And this artwork really was gorgeous in all this.
Yeah, I think he did a great job. I really do. And he wanted to color it himself, but he knew he didn't have the time to do it. But he finally got a chance to color the Origins and Omens story in 183, and he did a great job coloring it. So I hope he gets to color his work more in the future, because I think that if he'd gotten to color it himself, it really would have been something phenomenal. Because he really would have done a good job, a better job, I think, of knocking out a lot of the environmental elements into specific color washes. He could have done there's a lot of things he could have done with color that would have enhanced the art even more, as you can see from what he did with that Origins and Omens backup. So I hope that when he's drawing this Run series now, I hope that he gets to color that himself, because I think it's going to look phenomenal. And we hope to work together again. We really do. I really would like a chance to work together, whether it be on Tim Drake or whether it be on another character. I really would like that opportunity, because I enjoyed working with him a lot.
I could tell that we mentioned it when we spoke to Freddie. I said it really feels like there's a strong partnership between the writing and the art in this, because it really felt like the dialogue and the artwork tone, which is really important in great comics, is that you've got the mood that's set that matches what is being laid out in the dialogue and in the whole visual sequence. And it was something that we'd mentioned when we talked to him, and it's great to hear when you were talking about it earlier, how you urged him for the mood and the maturity of Tim Drake. That was something that came through in the artwork, and I'm really glad to see that kind of relationship. Like you said, old school, kind of getting down to it. Fabian, if I could, there's one sequence I'd love to talk about, because like Jim, I reread this whole story arc as well, and there was a point that I just want to compliment you on and thank you for. In the beginning of 182, you had the Batman and Robin moment where it's Tim's first time about to swing over the rooftops. Uh-huh. And there was that excitement of endless possibilities and how their goals are to provide those chances of endless possibilities to the citizens of Gotham. How Batman was relating so much of what Tim was getting out of being Robin to what their overall goals are for the city, that they're trying to make a change in this city. And on the surface, the moment like that, it looks so simple, but it's very deep and essential to understanding the core motivations of the character. When you prepare to take over a character, how important is it to you to get to the core motivations, the core root of who the character is, before you even start writing about them?
Well, I think it's vital to understand and know your character. And the industry nowadays often doesn't give you enough of an opportunity to do that. We get handed assignments that are rushed through the schedule, and we don't get a chance to think about the characters as much as we would like. I got thrown into having to write Robin immediately. A book had already missed shipping by a month. Me and Joe Bennett had to do 2 issues in 6 weeks. Freddie and I jumped right into a 6-part story arc that we knew was going to be leading towards the end of the book. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have gotten any of the nuance, any of the subtlety, any of the through lines that were thought out for the character. The only reason I was able to do that is because I knew the character. I'd been following the character since he was first introduced, and I understood the core concept of the character since I was 8 years old. So in that regard, I got to think about things in on the fly, but I knew them already. I understood them. There's been plenty of other assignments where they get dropped on your lap and you got to turn it in yesterday, and you don't have that same opportunity to do that. And that's frustrating in the industry right now, and it's frustrating for writers and artists too. But this was a particular case where I knew it. I knew the character. I also wanted to use that one-page opening because in many ways it was the antithesis of what he was doing himself and what he was going through now. It was hearkening back to the reason he became Robin to begin with, which was because he knew Batman needed joy in his life. He knew it. So he knew Batman needed a Robin. So here he is now, a Robin without a Batman. What does that mean to him? What does that mean to Gotham? So I purposely had that one little, opening page. I had originally been tinkering with the idea of doing something like that in every issue of the storyline, but I decided not to because I felt that I didn't need that many moments. I needed one moment, and that was it, right before the end of the story, itself. And it's like almost a flash memory for him as he's falling off a building, wrestling entangled with anarchy. And it's the opposite. It's the two things, thematically, the two statements were opposite to each other, and that was completely on purpose as well, because I wanted to show, in some ways, how far, quote-unquote, Tim had fallen. You know what I mean? And that was the pleasure of writing the story for me, is that I was getting to show a character falling as he was rising. So while morally, in many ways, he was falling into a bit of a black hole, in all other ways, he was rising up to accept adulthood, accept maturity, accept responsibility, all these things, So that's why the storyline was so enjoyable to me to get to write.
I want to make two quick comments, and then we can talk really fast about what's coming up this month for you, because you've got a couple of books that are coming out this month. I want to tell you how much I really appreciated your attention to the supporting cast. Stephanie, Zoanne, Ives, Officer Harper, just people who recently have been very important to this character, and how when you closed off that story, you closed off in many ways portions of that chapter of his life. With Zoanne, you gave us an ending to her. You gave us something with Stephanie. You gave us something with Ives that we could, and a little bit more of that relationship with Harper, where we see her now with Jason Bart, which was, I really enjoyed seeing those segments in there, because his supporting cast has been important.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that the supporting cast, there's been some rock-solid steadiness to them, but there's also been a little fluctuation in them. I inherited what Chuck had with Cavallo and Wise and Ives and Zoanne, and I didn't want to screw with that. I didn't want to mess it up. I knew I wanted to play up Harper a little more, because I wanted Tim to have his own Commissioner Gord. So I played her up a little bit more. But when I take over a book, I usually don't disregard what's been going on, because I never like that as a reader, so as a writer I don't do it. I try to make it a seamless flow. I may not do what the writer had originally intended, but I at least I try to focus and pay attention on what was going on and continue it forward. And I knew that writing the last issue of Robin, I got to leave him in a place where he needed to be able to sever ties to Gotham. So in order to do that, I wanted to pay a little lip service to him severing ties, quote unquote, with several characters. The Tim and Stephanie thing isn't over yet, because I pick up on it in Gotham Gazette. So that gets brought into play in Stephanie's chapters in the two Gotham Gazette one-shots. And then there's a little sense of finality or conclusion to their situation for now in those storylines, because I think that the beat I had between Steph and Tim at the end of 182 into 183 was not where I wanted to end it, and I never planned to end it there. I structured it the way I did because I knew that I'd be doing those Gazette issues at the time that I was already doing 182 and 183. I think I was doing final dialogue on 182 when Gazette was offered, and we've hammered it out. And then I scripted 183 knowing that I was already doing Gazette, so I was able to do those, build those beats in a certain way. So Tim came across looking like a total dick, and again, I don't mean Dick Grayson there, I mean penis. He came across looking like a total dick to Steph in 182, and that was wholly purposeful on my part. And there's a little bit of a softening to that in the Gazette stories coming up.
If we real quick, and I'm not asking for spoilers or anything that's going to ruin the story. When this is going to be released, it's going to be released next weekend. Gotham Gazette Batman Dead #1 will have been released. Can you tell our listeners real quick just a quick blurb of what they can expect if they missed picking up Gotham Gazette, why they should grab it?
Well, I think they should grab it because it's interesting stories about interesting people, and it really helps paint the broader picture of Gotham City. During the time of actually, Batman Dead comes out right before the events of Cowl, so there's almost like a poised waiting on the part of the city for something to happen. And we're following what I consider to be four very interesting people. We're bringing Leslie Tompkins back to the books. We're advancing Harvey Bullock's storyline because he hasn't had enough camera time since James Robinson brought him back in Detective. We're bringing back Vicky Vale because we felt that
very cool.
We needed more of Bruce Wayne's past relationships in Gotham. And I'm following up on Stephanie Brown because I wanted to come to a conclusion and make a statement about what I wanted to do with her. I mean, she screwed up a lot in Search for a Hero, and a lot of spoiler fans were pretty pissed about that, but I feel I inherited a character who's a perpetual screw-up, period. I think that she has a long history of screwing up, and I never wrote any of those. I just wrote the one she did now, you know? What I wanted to do is take all of that and make her come to terms with it, make her come to understand who she is and what she wants to be. And I get to try to do that in 10 pages, because each issue is 2 5-page chapters, or one. Each issue is a 5-page chapter of all 4 characters. So each character gets a 10-page story, as it were. I think if you pick up Gazette, you're going to get 4 very interesting artists, 5 if you count Dustin Nguyen's opening and closing pages. You're going to get a really interesting look at characters in Gotham City, and you're going to look at characters that many Batman readers have a vested interest in, because all Batman readers really, really like aspects of the different supporting characters.
Coming out after this recording's released, Fabian, is going to be Azrael Death's Dark Knight. Can you tell us a little bit about that series, what you can, without spoiling any of that?
It's about a guy with a flaming sword.
It runs concurrent with Battle for the Cowl.
Yes, it does. The way we broke it down, Mike and I talked about it, we were trying to make everything fit. Not fit so much that it's a perfectly matching jigsaw puzzle, but fit so that everybody had a fair idea of what was happening when. We kind of figured out that this is all 1 week in the life of Gotham. So Gotham Gazette number, Batman Dead, is like Sunday, and Battle for the Cowl is like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You know, Azrael is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You know, so all of these stories are taking place from a Sunday to a Monday of 1 week. And Batman Alive is actually the bookend at the other end of that. While Cowl is going on, and there's actually a scene in Azrael number 1, which marries you perfectly to when it's taking place in the context of Battle for the Cowl number 1. As this is going on, Gotham needs a protector, clearly. The heroes are all running around and scrambling. There's an opportunity, it's felt, by members of a group called the Order of Purity to allow their new Azrael to go out in the open and be Gotham's protector. That's where we start in issue number 1, as it were. Actually, it actually happens in Gotham Gazette, because there's touches to Azrael in Gotham Gazette number 1, but we never see Azrael in it. But in Batman Alive, coming out tomorrow, it's a subplot that sets the stage for Azrael number 1, which comes out in a week or two. I don't even know when it comes out.
It's listed, I think, as March 18th from what I'm looking at here. So.
Yeah, and we'll see. Honestly, the art has been coming in very slow, because Fraser Irving is doing really cool work, but he's penciling it and doing full color washes on it on the computer. So it's very slow work. It looks really, really good, but it's taken a long time. So I'll be the first to admit that I wouldn't be surprised if the following issues are delayed as a result of it, because we barely got one out in time. So we'll see. But even so, I can't talk too much about Azrael without getting into who he is, and I don't want to get into who he is yet. The whole concept is a group called the Order of Purity, which was a splinter group from Dumas from centuries ago that forged something called the Suit of Sorrows. Suit of Sorrows has been in the possession of a collector, quote-unquote, named Ra's al Ghul, and his daughter Talia gave it to Batman as a present. During the sacking of the Batcave, as is often the case, somebody made off with the Suit of Sorrows. Don't ask me how or when or why, because I have nothing to do with it. I'm just starting off with the point that the Suit of Sorrows has been given to somebody to wear to be the new Azrael for this group. The drawback to the Suit of Sorrows, though, is that eventually it drives whoever wears it a little crazy, because it carries with it the burdens of all the past sins and salvations of all who have fought in it or fought against it, been killed by its sword or struck a sword against it. And more often than not, those are far weightier burdens than the person wearing it can bear. Whether that is real supernatural magic or whether that is psychosomatic burdens, we don't know for sure yet. But we'll see in issue number 1 that it most certainly is real, because the person wearing the suit is having some real problems. And that's where we kick off. What happens after that is basically the thrust of the whole storyline. It's a very, very different book than what you might expect. It's a very different book than anything else I've been writing lately. It's very, very simple in its approach and style. It has some kind of jarring scene cuts from one to the next. Things take place between scenes that I just don't feel like dragging out too much, so sometimes, there's, I think in issue 2, him and Talia are fighting, and they stop fighting because she says something that confuses him, and we cut, and the next time we see them together, they're at her penthouse, and he's sitting down having a cup of tea with her. so I didn't need to explain that clearly he wanted to learn more about this, and she said, well, come back to my place, Tiger, and I'll show you my etchings, as it were, you know?
Nice.
So I do that a lot. Part of it was because I wanted to really approach it with a slightly different cadence, a different sense of pacing. But the other part of it is it's a 3-issue miniseries, and it's really, really hard to break down a 3-issue miniseries into a traditional 3-act story structure. And that sounds odd since it's 3 issues, but when you break down 3-act story structures, usually your first act and your third act are short, and your second act is a lot longer, and really you'd want 4 or 5 issues of a comic book to do that. So as a result, I had to chop out a lot of the kinds of scenes that would go into a traditional 3-act structure. So, and I don't mind it, actually. I kind of like when I do this kind of stuff because it's fun. It just keeps me on my toes. And as a result, the pacing is pretty rapid fire. That doesn't mean it's all action, not in the least, but the pacing is really quick. And I like it personally. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I like the character a lot, even though he doesn't say all that much. And I like the circumstances under which he's being introduced into Gotham City. I like that a lot as well. So we'll see how it goes. If it's well received, they're probably going to want to consider doing a monthly book. So, you know, I got to pay my bills and I got to feed my children, so everybody go buy it.
I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for it, too, because I love the Azrael concept, so I'm really looking forward to that. That's why I wanted to make sure we shouted that out really quick as well. I know you've got to get going, so we'll get ready to wrap this up. This next question that I have for you, and it's really quick, can we hope to see you involved in the Bat universe after Battle for the Cowl? Because I've been really enjoying what you've been doing.
Well, I'm sure, yeah. I mean, Mike and I enjoy working together. I don't have a monthly book from them right now. But that doesn't mean that I won't get one in the future. You never know. I mean, if Azrael sells well and they want to make it a monthly, they'll probably ask me to write it, and I'll probably want to write it. You know, if one of the new books that they're launching, you know, only has a 12-issue commitment from a writer, they may want someone to come in and take over. You know, you never know. Who knows? I'm assuming that I've done good work on the Bat family in the last year. I'm assuming I have a good relationship with the editors. So as a result, I'm assuming that I'll get more work.
I asked the same question at New York Comic Con at the Battle for the Cowl panel, and obviously they couldn't say much at that point in time as far as what the books look like after Battle for the Cowl, but I truly mean that. I would genuinely love to see you continue in the Bat universe. The Bat universe to me is very important to me, and what you've been doing I think is excellent. I also want to compliment you on Trinity, which I know we can't go into right now, but that's been a stellar book that I've been enjoying weekly. So your work at DC right now has just been top-notch, and I just want to thank you for that, and I want to thank you for your time today.
I got a nice contract extension from DC, which was very rewarding, so any comic book writing I do in the next couple of years will be under the DC banner, and I'm very happy about that. So hopefully it'll be interesting, enjoyable stuff.
Thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. Probably get asked this a ton. How do you pronounce your last name?
Sienkiewicz.
Okay.
Wait,
Sienkiewicz. You know what? I actually, for a second there, you caught me on that, too.
Outstanding.
Because you know what? I butcher his last name, too.
I'm sorry. I do that a lot. It's pronounced Buscema. So that's just easy.
Now, you didn't get me the second time.
It's very easy. Nicieza.
Nicieza. Okay.
Nicieza. Yeah, and I wondered, did Kurt Swan get asked these questions? That's what I want to know.
Probably not, but your name, I butchered your name so many years reading the comics.
I wish my name were Bob Kane. He never got anyone. I don't know if he ever got that one wrong. I should have made up a name. I wish I would have been an old 30s Jewish writer. Then I could have just changed my name to something else, and it would have been something simple.
Yes. I can't
could have changed it to Shlomo Nicieza. That would have been easier.
What a dunce am I? I actually hesitated for a second when he said Sienkiewicz.
I don't know you well enough to be able to qualify to what degree of a dunce you are.
You know what?
But I'll have to say pretty high up there on the scale.
I like this guy. Oh,
wait, I took full ownership of that. You know, and I was just going to say nice things about you, like how much I've been enjoying your work all these years.
Nah.
You know what? Now I'm not going to say any of that.
that candid, heartfelt interviewer patter is always so heartwarming.
You filthy criminals.
Jim, it's been a while since we've been able to talk some new comics, and there's been so much stuff that I really want to talk about. That let's jump right into a Speeding Bullets segment.
Yeah.
I want to start first with Wonder Woman 28 and 29.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, dude.
This is what separates a good read from a great read. It's about the development of a great supporting cast that you can continue to grow to understand over time. This issue was really strong for me because we got some answers to many mysteries. The Tom and Diana opening was really hell yeah for me because we got inside Diana's head. We saw her strength, her passion, and her vulnerability all from her internal dialogue. When it comes to her responsibilities, she oozes with determination. Yet we also see that she is a woman, and like anyone in a relationship, she longs for time to be with her lover. To me, this added to my respect for the character. We see her totally in charge of her priorities, but also see that there is a part of her that Tom completes. The mystery of the nature of the lasso also continues to unfold here. As the bearer, she understands it in a way that the others can't.
Yeah, I love the fact that we're getting more out of just something that everyone always dismissed as just, it's the magic lasso, it makes people tell the truth. No, there's something more to it. There's just that little extra that we're now getting, and it just adds to just the whole mystique of Wonder Woman. It's, something that was just basically, it's magic, boom, done. No, there's something extra beyond that. So
yeah, and there's room to explore that because it is something that hasn't really been taken in any direction. So it's nice that she's able to kind of expand upon that and add something to the nature of this.
It's like how I always say how there's this really cool Amazonian code, of conduct. Well, now we have another really cool, supporting, if you will, even want to call it supporting part of Wonder Woman that is getting escalated to another level again.
It's like we still at this stage learn things about characters like Superman and Batman that we didn't know before. There are rocks to uncover. There are secrets to still explore, and that's the nice thing. Tom has grown as a character in this series. I think much of this is due to the fact that he's from Cleveland.
Hey, you know how Clevelanders are. We, improvise, adapt. We overcome any adversity presented to us because we are that dang good.
Well, it clearly gives him an edge that lesser mortals can't hope to understand. It's like, being serious, though, he really did start off this series kind of cocky and not really likable. But with each issue, we got to see that this was only surface level, and there's a much deeper, much more complex individual inside. His relationship with Diana has helped him grow, not only in the understanding of her, but of himself and the Amazonian culture. And that's what I've really liked. He's become a very likable character, whereas initially he was a jerk.
Yeah. And I kind of see him as our way, as us normal people getting into, part of the team. He's kind of our connection. He's our eyes. We are him going into it. This is, I think about how I would react if that circumstance was, if I was in his same type of shoes and, whatnot. So it's adds another additional human side to the whole puzzle.
Okay. I just am imagining you in his shoes.
Hey, I'd make a great nemesis.
Yeah. See, just because you want to be with Diana.
Yes.
Diana is at her best when we see all of those classic power traits, but also when she feels three-dimensional. And I love this. I love this aspect of her as a real person, where she comes off the page in a way that we haven't seen before. Is it fair to ask any man to go through this moment? I'm not certain anymore. The pressure and the weight of being a hero is something we have discussed on this show many times. It is not for everyone, and this issue brings that home. I really liked these moments because, again, it brings in the reality that being a hero is something special. Lopresti, Anderson, Ryan, and Wands are really nailing the visuals. Gotta love the Wonder Armor. The battle scars from Diana were really critical to my sense of the intensity of this whole thing because they're consistent all the way through. Genocide put a hurt on Diana and she's still feeling it, yet she still steps up, which to me is great. I get that you're willing to die, but you don't have to die stupid, princess. Tom's a warrior himself, and very rational. I get why she respects him. I like that we see the affection in her eyes, and the shift from the determined warrior to the loving woman is very powerfully visual. The mood and the tone set, just in the initial pages, were a home run for me, and I really liked that I saw that visually as well as coming off from the dialogue. It's a great book.
I know, and you just touched on this, the artwork. Some of those scenes where, what I did a lot of times with Wonder Woman, I'd read through it once, and then I'd go back through, and I didn't read the words like the second I went through, just so I can, dive into the, the artwork and just see that. And the artwork telling the story. I already had, the words in my mind. I already knew what happened. I didn't have the dialogue memorized or whatnot, but you knew enough, and then you're seeing the artwork, and it's a cool thing I've been doing. I did it with the Robins, with Secret Six, with a couple other titles where I'm just like, my second read-through is 0 words. It's just pure art enjoyment. And Wonder Woman's definitely one of the titles I'm really just having a ball with, where as you said, just the emotion conveyance and just the act, everything, you can see it in the artwork. You don't need the inner dialogue, but then when you put the two together, you're just like, yes.
Oh, you get something on a really...
Yeah.
Comics are a lot like film in the sense that, they're scripted to have the words, but then also the visual piece, and it's important to have both components. The kiss was not only a great moment, but an important step up to, I wish I could choose you, choose us over this painful obligation. There's a connectability there. Great comics make us want to be better people. How many of us on a daily basis are faced with responsibility choices? They're often hard to make. Comics can make each of us feel like we can be heroes on a daily basis. I really liked this. It was a great moment. The Gorillas have been some of my favorite supporting cast. Their comedy comes from them being out of their element. It works so well to see them in the big city and hiding. Gail Simone does a fantastic job of reminding us that they're not just comedic sidekicks. They're noble warriors from Gorilla City that will die if necessary to win the battle to come. And when we get to issue 29, we see that. All the more powerful when we see that build from 28 to 29.
Oh, yeah. At New York, I think it was New York or Chicago, where it was Chicago last year, where there was a couple of people making cracks about the talking gorillas and Wonder Woman, and there was a couple of jokes about it, and it kind of irked me because I know there was all good natured ribbing, but still these are really cool characters who could very easily be just cheesy, goofy, add-on comic release. But we see these warriors. We see this cool, just, honor code and structure and who they are. And it's one of those things where I'm like, if I can't be Tom, I want to be one of the gorillas.
Well, that's what I really appreciate about her writing, though. And it's one of the reasons why people are wondering, why are you so Gail Simone happy all the time? I'll tell you right now. She understands how to put humor into a book without taking away from the coolness of the character. The gorillas are cool, but they're funny too because they're out of their element. It's done in an appropriate way where you can have laughs, because I love to laugh. I love a joke in my comics. But there's comics where slapstick's appropriate. There's comics where subtle humor's appropriate. There's comics where sarcasm's appropriate. And I think a talented person with using comedy in a serious situation knows the balance of when to put what kind of comedy into a particular series without losing what the tone of the characters are that you're trying to set. That's where she thrives, and I really like that. You get these strong action sequences, but you get a laugh. I'm trying to think of, there's very few issues of any book that she's done that there hasn't been at least a chuckle moment that was deliberately put into the book. There's very few that I can think of. I mean, there might be an issue that was particularly dire where that wasn't put in and it wasn't appropriate for it. But I would be hard pressed to think of what issue of her books would have that. And I appreciate that because I do feel like I go through the total emotional gambit when I read a Gail Simone issue. And it is something that keeps me coming back every month. It gets me excited every month, and it's why her books always rise to the top of the stack for me, because of the fact that I get that emotional attachment to them. So it's kind of cool thing for me. We were talking for ages about Sergeant Steele's behavior.
Yeah.
I don't know why the heck I didn't think of Dr. Psycho. I feel like a moron.
Dude, as soon as I read that, I was like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. I literally just it was one of those smack in the head going, knucklehead. Oh.
And it's not the only time in Speeding Bullets I'm going to talk about a book that made me feel like an idiot, but we'll get to Action Comics later.
I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there
How did I
with
not
you.
see this
Yeah,
coming
no.
either? But see, that's just it. It's a great story in the sense that you can look back now and see, duh, it was right there. But it was done so subtly, and there might be other people that were like, oh, I caught it was Dr. Psycho from the get-go. Cool that you caught that. I think that's great for you. My hat's off to you. I enjoyed the experience of realizing afterwards that it was there all along. The clues were there. I should have seen it, but I didn't. And that was great. We did see his behavior, though, and I'm glad that along the way we knew something was up, something was wrong, and that made the payoff all the more meaningful is the fact that we've seen this coming.
Yeah, and it's... You see it going, and you're just like, what's going on? Oh, well, it'll be... And I remember us talking about it, saying it will be explained in the end. We had faith that it would be explained, and of course, it did get explained.
And it was explained all along.
But we just were... I don't,
Which is great. Does anyone else think that Evil Pat, a.k.a. Genocide, might just need a hug? You know, it hates men, it hates women, it never said it hated androgyny.
You hug it.
Yeah.
I'll leave that one to you, buddy.
I'm here for you, man. I'm secure in myself. I could have a moment with Evil Pat.
Yeah, it should give you a nice little hug where...
Yeah. I'm taking I'm going to grab that lasso and run like heck if I can. With what was done to Black Canary and Jon Stewart, we see that genocide affects people at their core. We do see this later in 29 with Donna, too, where Donna is now blaming Diana for things that clearly Diana had nothing to do with. And so I'm glad to see that we're seeing more and more of this, this way that genocide affects people and brings them down to their lowest and to the point where they're lashing out at everybody for things that have happened to them.
Now, here's the thing I'm wondering.
Okay.
Do you think genocide's powers were magnified because of the lasso to make it even worse? Because we saw this before, but once she got that lasso in her, it kind of kicked it up a notch.
Yeah. So it could be.
So, yeah.
Again, the nature of the lasso and what it brings out in people. So I think that's part of what we're learning about the lasso and how it's been corrupted. Because we saw Diana just...
freak out when it wasn't there. She knows what it's capable of.
Yeah, but also the freak out with how it's... the connection almost she has with the lasso. She was able to connect with the lasso and realize, boy, it's being corrupted by this creature, which is an interesting little twist. There was this great kick-butt double-page spread in 28 of Diana, Donna, and Cassie and the various players who were throughout this. It's great to see the League in this book. I feel it again, the hovering, emotional weight of the creature. It feels like every bad mistake that I've made in my life and more. Do you think the despair genocide seems to bring on, and I mean that lasso thing all the way through, do you think it affects them when they're in direct combat, when they're in just a general area? Like, what level is this thing now? When you talk about it being amplified, I guess that was something I was thinking about, because I agreed with you. I actually had in my notes about the amplification. Do you think it's, what causes this? Is it directed by genocide?
Yeah, I think what happened was, before lasso, it was direct combat, direct confrontation is where you got infected. Mm-hmm. Once she got the lasso in her, it just magnified, so it's now an area effect. Area around her is automatically affected by it, and then she can focus the attack and make it even worse.
So you think it's like emotional BO?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Raise your hand if you're sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really we just need like a case of deodorant. There can be no protection for loved ones during the end times. For Diana to rush into battle under that pretense just added to my respect. Sure, she's the leader, and the general... What are you laughing about?
Secret, strong enough for a man, but made for genocide.
Hey, that would be perfect, because it is strong enough for a man, but women use it, so
there you go.
We finally found the perfect candidate for Secret Solid. Hey, that could be a spin-off book, Secret Solid. The true story of genocide. Anyways. anyway, back to Diana. Sure, she is the leader in general of this group, but she does this from the front lines by example, which is one of the things that I really like about her. She's that headlong, you do the hoorah thing.
Oh, yeah.
And she is totally a hoorah person. She's right out there in your face, in the middle of the battle, and that's why people follow her. There is a respect to her. And that's a pretty consistent thing throughout different medium. And throughout the history of Diana, you typically do see her don the battle armor and get out there in the front. We see it in things like New Frontier, for example.
Yeah.
We see it clearly in the recently released Wonder Woman DVD, which we will be talking about on the show. It'll be we just got to find a time to get it in, but I definitely want to talk about that because I really enjoyed that. And I really wish that was almost in the theaters because of the experience we had when we got to see it in New York at the preview with such a large group. It was fun to share that experience with people, the laughter, the high five moments and things like that. To be with a giant group of people in that theater was a lot of fun, and I think that's a way that more of these DVDs should be experienced. But that's a consistent thing about her as a character, is that she's got that general type of thing. This felt very Braveheart to me, which is an important emotion for a Diana book. She knows that to have any chance of beating this creature, you need hope. And she does everything in her power to bring that out in others. I do like the concept of hope versus despair. Warriors banding together in a battle that they can't hope to win, but they have to try to do what's right. And that was the concept and the vibe I got from all this, and I liked it. Valerian is introduced by Zeus as the home of the Olympians. Is that how you pronounce that? Or?
Yeah.
Pronounce that the new hope of the Olympians. Jason and the Argonauts are brought in, and it's clear that Zeus has a new plan for peace. It's far different from the one laid out by Athena and the Amazons. He plans to create peace by force, which is an interesting contradiction.
Peace to superior firepower.
Yeah.
It has been a long-running, military doctrine where if you lay down enough firepower, make yourself this powerful force that no one can mess with, you will eventually have peace. Now, to get that peace, there's usually a large span of horrific violence, but you will eventually have peace.
Which is not very peace-like.
Right. Well, sometimes you gotta, the greater good. You gotta break a couple eggs to make an omelet.
Well, it's the whole theory that if you kill everyone you don't get along with, or if you beat down everyone you don't get along with, that eventually you're going to be pretty peaceful.
There you go. Yeah. You'll have world peace.
Yeah. I can't wait to see Jason's son, because this is where this is all heading.
Yeah.
That's the Olympian, right? Is that you're taking this?
Yeah, that's how I took it.
Okay. The Philippus flashback is really fantastic. I love that her childhood training is a source, I'm talking about Diana's, her source of inspiration and a rally cry. The dread and the pain caused by the corruption of Lasso I was talking about again, that deeper connection was really an interesting exploration for me. Genocide just doesn't want to beat Diana down. It's more important to take her soul. Destruction from the inside out is how I was taking that whole thing. It was really interesting that at the core it wasn't about a physical beating as much as breaking down her spirit and that part that inspires others.
If you break someone's arm, it'll eventually heal.
Right.
And that's what Genocide's going for. Genocide's going for the complete victory, which means it's not a physical breakdown. It's the spiritual, it's the mental, it's the mind, body, and soul of a hero that she's going after. We saw the same thing with Batman R.I.P. They wanted a complete and total breakdown of Batman. It wasn't just about beating him physically. This is that same type of level. And I'm just completely eating it up because, when we saw, everyone said how this was this was Wonder Woman's doomsday. And yes, this is a formula force that is beaten on it, but there's kind of another level beyond this, where I saw Doomsday more as a physical beatdown and a wonderful story of just this unstoppable juggernaut of power.
Right.
Genocide is not just the physical, it's the emotional, it's the mental, there's just every single thing is going on, that it's fighting on, Diana's fighting on multiple fronts. And I love seeing that complex of battle.
Well, and you got to, it's always Diana, you're talking about the spirit and the symbolism of Diana, but it really does come from her emotional spirit and the concept that she came here to do some good and to inspire others. If you break her from the inside where she can no longer inspire, then that will change her whole outlook. Really interesting. I like that exploration. I have to admit that I have no theories on the identity of genocide. I'm just enjoying the ride. The souls inside genocide's eyes have me curious. Do you take some of them to be those we have seen die in previous issues?
Yes.
Okay.
I completely took that as she defeats somebody, she takes their soul. And she wants Wonder Woman's soul, to add to her collection. And I don't think we've seen genocide before. I don't think genocide's been anybody.
I guess there was some.
I think
I've seen on different forums. So this is where I'm coming from with this. That people think genocide is possessed by some kind of god or something like that. I'm sure Ares is probably one of the ones that they're thinking of at this point. I guess I don't see that either. I think genocide is
a complete creation.
I agree. I think that too. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be disappointed if genocide was in some way. I guess the god reference that's always thrown to genocide is what's making people question. It's normal whenever you're reading a good story like this to want to speculate over the character, right or wrong. We go back to the Dr. Psycho Sergeant Steele thing. Who cares?
Yeah.
At the end result, I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I like speculating. I like thinking about a book. That means I'm interested. So if I'm even bothering to try to wrap my head around something, that means I'm interested. I don't care if the end result is just genocide. I like thinking about it, though. Who could genocide? What could genocide be? What's the deal?
Heck, I was thinking about if I was in that mall when all that was going down, what would I have done? How would would I have had the guts to try to attack genocide, or would I have tried to stay hidden, sneak out? If I can help somebody else escape, I'd help them escape. But so you start thinking of for me, I was getting well into beyond just the what I was reading. I was thinking, you got people inside that mall because genocide was going for complete destruction of everybody.
Sure.
But while concentrating on one person, maybe a couple others could slip out.
I did see in the eyes a couple of people that looked like they could be mall walkers.
Yeah.
Do you think if genocide absorbed Ambush Bug's soul that it would be like a cataract?
Well, wait, if it absorbed Ambush Bug's soul, that means it would have Dan DiDio.
Oh.
Ooh, that'd be really powerful then.
There you go. The DMA building is blown up by Cheetah and Psycho. Jason's about to attack a military vessel. A ton has happened, and I feel like this awesome ride is only getting started. If you're not reading Wonder Woman, it's really a book that you need to read. As we talk about issue 28, I just want to talk about it briefly because we talked about Donna's influence already from genocide. You don't mess with the gorillas, dude. The death of one of the gorillas down there, that was a moment where I'm like, whoa. Yeah, I liked how there was an honor to that moment, though.
Yeah. He had gone home, he had done his duty, and I was just like, oh, man, it's the one of the hardest things when you deal with like a death in combat and death of a warrior. It's how do you respond? You want to sit there, and you want to be man enough that you would shed a tear for your fallen comrade, but you still have a job to do, and you don't want to dishonor their memory by failing to act when you need to act. So you knuckle up. It's one of those things. You bury it and you deal and you continue on with the mission. You can't let the emotion of your despair, your hatred, or your rage affect your action. Because one of the biggest problems when you're in a fighting is you get too emotional. You don't think, you don't plan out. Combat. You think about like the MMA stuff and boxing, where it's a formalized attack. If you go in there like a crazy man swinging, you're going to get dropped hard. Yeah. So you got to have
rightfully so.
Yeah, you got to have that control. You got to still think. Most dangerous weapon is the mind. And you're just like, oh, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the gorillas do, because it's time to open up a can. As I said, you got all that emotion, and they're going to have to unleash it on somebody, and I do feel bad for whoever they're unleashing it on.
Euphemus, which I'm guessing Poseidon's son, showed us that the Olympians are packing some serious godlike power. That was one nasty-looking octopus.
Yeah, that was a super giant squid there, gonna rip open a nuclear-powered battleship, without even batting an eye.
Cain Milohai versus Zeus. Jim, was I the only one rooting for Cain?
No, I was on there. I was rooting for my boy, and sorry, guy. Aloha.
I'm wondering though, because his heart's going to be used for the Olympian. I'm interested to see if the fact that it's his heart comes into play later. If Cain's influence or power will drive or be part of this new creation, or if on some level through the inside, we might see the Olympian influenced by Cain. I don't know. I'm. And I could be dry. It could be just that it's Cain's heart. It's got some power to it because it's from a god. It's in there. It's a nice It's like a battery more than anything else, but I'm wondering if there won't be more to it than that. It'll be interesting to see. Just some speculation on where it could go. Diana's inner dialogue during the fight with Minerva. How the missing lasso affects her. That was an interesting little twist for me. How she doesn't... It's almost like she doesn't feel as... she's missing a piece of herself. Mm-hmm. Almost a trusted ally.
Yeah, you figure her whole life she's trained to fight with that. You take it away and you're going to be off your game a little bit. It's going to be a little bit harder to do what you got to do.
The rocket and the sound of Minerva being the solution was very cool. I love that she used geometry and deflection to solve her problem. It showed she's a smart cookie, too.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting, it's not just about power, it's about using your intelligence. Aphrodite, dead or in a different state of being? How did you take that?
When I first read it, I said dead. And then I started thinking, wait a minute, I don't know, are they completely gone? And that's when that's where I'm thinking, first reaction was dead.
Same with me, but then as I read it through the second time,
yeah, I was like,
I'm like, well, maybe, I don't know.
Maybe there's something more.
Because the way it said she's gone, they didn't say she's dead.
Right. And
interesting distinction of dialogue. So, I don't know. Steve Trevor on the scene looking for Etta. Great moment. Wondering if he will learn it's Dr. Psycho or not. It's interesting. I liked it, though. It was a very powerful Steve Trevor moment when he came in. And,
I know. And
where's my wife? And that's ooh.
Yeah, and I really do not want to see this Etta get killed.
No.
Yeah, I'm really this is an Etta that I actually enjoy. I'm like, we got to keep her around. Come on, don't kill her off.
Especially now that Genocide has Etta.
Yeah.
We had the Origin and Omens segment on this one, which I want to talk about a little bit because Hippolyta and Tom made for a great segment there. They're a great supporting cast. I love the side of her we see when they interact, including her pointing out that Amazon medicine is an option for him and open to him. This is more advanced, he said he wasn't, especially because of his new status as being a member of them through association, that I liked that distinction, that he now has some doors open to him that no other man does, and I liked that. Diana having been surrounded by too much love, does Hippolyta mean that she takes it for granted, or that she doesn't understand how special what she has with him is? How did you take that, Jim?
I honestly didn't know. A lot of
I was thinking about that, too. I'm not quite sure what that means yet.
The Omen sections really have me... depending on what mood I'm in when I read it, is how I interpret it. Especially that one with the too much love. I'm like, well, how can you have too much love? Then I started immediately thinking, I wonder if somehow the star sapphires are going to, the one rings are going to, play into effect. Are they going to approach her?
Well, Origin and Omens don't necessarily need to mean that they're associated with Blackest Night. Every issue has Origins and Omens, I think, as a way to get a flavor for the characters and where their books are heading. I don't necessarily take it to mean that every single book that has an Origins Omens segment, because they're all written by the writers of the particular book, not by Jeff Johns.
Right. And that's part of, as I said, every time I read it, I get a different feeling. Like, when I was reading it thinking there could be a tie-in to Blackest Night, I'm thinking that. When I'm reading it not thinking Blackest Night, just thinking Diana, it's like, if she's got too much love, maybe if when she loses it, if you, have so much around you and you lose it suddenly, it causes like a really larger fall and a harder hit. So, if she's got this love that she's depending on always having around her and all of a sudden it's gone. Think about how much damage that would do.
I like to think, what's behind that smile? What is really going on with Diana behind that smile, and who is that character? I like that we're exploring that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's interesting. I'm excited for where this book's heading, because it's clear we're going to be getting an exploration of what is going on behind Diana. I'm worried for their relationship, Tom and Diana.
Big time.
And I mean that in a good way, because I care. So, it's an interesting thing. I'm not saying in the sense that I'm worried about it, like I'm going to be angry with something that happens. It's more so, I think it's good character development that whatever happens to characters matters to you. That shows good, strong character, that you're invested in these people.
And you think about the Final Crisis Aftermath, Escape. Is Tom captured, by the global police or whatever they're calling themselves now?
Yeah.
So there's
It's that global police force that we saw in Superman Beyond 3D,
right.
That and the other issues of Final Crisis that Question was a part of.
Yeah, so it's going to be a huge, there's that whole piece there as well. I'm wondering if there's some connection that way, because with Tom captured and in prison, Diana is going to be a little bit miffed about it.
Well, and that'll test the mettle of a relationship, though. When a relationship goes through tough times, it's can the people survive? And that will be a decision whether or not this is, for them, a real relationship. If there really is something strong there to hold them together. It's interesting. I like that kind of development to it. It adds a reality to the whole thing. Not every relationship can survive. I wanted to talk a little bit, and we're a little behind on this because Batman and the Outsiders led into the 2 issues of Outsiders. I wanted to talk about the special a little bit if I could. Just because I'm a huge Alfred fan, and Tomasi just nailed this in so many ways. The sense of Alfred as a parent who lost his son, and the moments that he needed to be with Thomas and Martha, the responsibility he felt towards Bruce. These are moments for me. This shows where Peter Tomasi is just nailing everything that he does out of the park. It was a home run segment for me. Alfred is a character. I've grown up with Alfred. I care about Alfred deeply, and when he's written well, his relationship with Bruce really is one of those things that adds more depth to the Batman universe. The times when Alfred's missing from the Batman books, there feels like something's missing. And it's great to see him taking on such a prominent role.
And I'll be honest with you, when all this was coming out with the Outsiders, I was like, it should be an interesting, I was kind of curious about it, but there was in the back of my head just going, am I really going to like this? And I went into this thinking, because I know I like Alfred. I think he's a cool character when he's a supporting, but he's really becoming like the lead in this. And then I was looking at who the team was going to be, and I'm like, I don't know. And then, but that special, I read it. I was like, oh, this is going to be something good. This is going to be something beyond just a cool action team. We're going to get in depth in some really neat characters here. And so as, that, and then the issue, 15 came out, I'm going through 15 going, I see this thing rising up my read list very quickly just because of everything you said. Just we're getting into the psyche of these characters. And Alfred is a really cool guy that you see his influence, the positive influence he had on Bruce growing up. Some of the really great Bruce characteristics came from Alfred. It's that, he didn't give him the drive because that is internal. That is all Bruce. Mm-hmm. But the tools,
right,
to do it, the guidance. There's, power, passion, unchecked, unfocused is wasted.
He was a trusted advisor.
Yeah.
Who he respected to the point that Alfred could say things to Bruce a lot of times that no one else, including Dick and Tim, could ever get away with.
Including Superman. There's some stuff Superman wouldn't have been able to say that Alfred could say.
There is a level of respect there that Alfred gets. Alfred is a father figure. And, we see this in these moments. Right up to the nighttime surprise in the cave. This was the first time I saw this, where we first got this glimpse into Bruce having these. I geeked out at this so much. So I love how this concept is something we see in the other Bat titles afterwards. Bruce puts a message in place for those he's attached to. Bruce is telling Alfred how much he deserves a rest, how much his true plans for the Outsiders will be above and beyond his responsibility with the boys as well. Alfred doesn't hesitate or flinch when given 5 minutes to decide. That was more like, you go, Alfred. You show him how it goes. It's tiny moments like this which really show me that Tomasi gets this guy. He understands how important this character is to the mythos. I loved it. We jump from this to Geoforce. His new powers, how it's changed him, has really been an interesting twist for the character. Tomasi builds off a Last Will and Testament. We get the feeling that it's the same guy who's coming to grips with who he is now. Imagine burying yourself alive. Now imagine doing that not only out of choice, but out of preference. I get that he knows he wouldn't die, and it's the nature of the powers. I'm not a naturally claustrophobic person, but I sure as heck would be in this case. Yeah. What'd you think of the new Owlman, Roy Raymond Jr.? He's the grandson of the original, who presents a tabloid television series in Gotham City called Roy Raymond Manstalker. Now, it's really interesting. He's this detective character, so he's got a history here.
Yeah, he's one that when we first started seeing the signs of the Owlman, I was like, okay, what's going on here? And for a while there, I was thinking maybe Alfred was donning the Owlman costume. I didn't know who it was. Then we've seen this guy in previous Batman episodes and issues and whatnot, so we kind of have an initial input to who he is. He's one of those people that so far, every reading I've had of him, I've enjoyed. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a cool character. There's a lot of, that we can flex with this. There's a lot that can be done and growth in this character. So I'm like, I don't want to say he's like awesome, but I don't have the opinion of him yet. I'm still building, but he's one of the characters when this team is now forming. I'm going, okay, I want to see where he goes.
Do you think it was a good move?
Oh, definitely a good move.
Okay.
You added the detective into the team. I like the fact that he wasn't immediately welcome and like, hey, come on, buddy.
Nobody knows who he is.
Nobody knows who he is. You don't know who the guy is. You don't know what he can do. You got to be careful, especially when you're dealing with a covert ops like this.
And especially when you're dealing with a group of people, Halo, Katana, Metamorpho, Black Lightning, Geoforce, they were all members of the original Outsiders. They have a history together and immediate trust for each other. So now you're putting this guy into the mix, and the Creeper, for example. It's an interesting little twist. I did like with Roy Raymond the small detail that he kept the blindfold on the girl when leading her out to keep her from seeing anything that might add further trauma to her.
Right.
It was a tiny little thing, but for me, I'm like, oh, it added a little hint of realism. And it added to me a sense of respect for this character that I needed at that moment. I'm like, attach me to this guy. Do something. He started attaching me right there. That was a great moment.
Yeah, he's not just a tabloid journalist, who would want to, traumatize the person, then get the traumatized reaction on, the camera. That would have been a great. You think about it, if you're thinking just pure ratings, you get the traumatized girl running out and going, ah, freaking out.
Yeah,
that would have been just like right there. All right.
And the sad part is, in our society nowadays, people would probably consider that better TV.
Yeah. Oh, just watch the news and you see just how
creepy.
It's you only want to report the horrific and the violent and the nasty. You don't want to report the calm, nice, good stories because that's not good TV. That doesn't get your ratings. You want the crying mama on TV crying about the lost child. You don't want the story about the guy who volunteers every day of their life to feed at the homeless shelter. Come on, that's boring.
Yeah, agreed. Creeper is also brought in, as I mentioned. It's interesting that this all goes back to Batman planning for possible situations. I really liked this in R.I.P. It wasn't that Batman knew this particular thing would happen, but he tried to prepare for possible scenarios to handle and compensate for the fact that he was human and one man. I'm interested to see where Tomasi takes Jack Ryder, and where this all goes. But I did like that concept that Batman, he had a mission for Gotham. He wanted to do something for the city. This city is his city. So he would put things in place. What happens if I die? This is what I need in place if I die. This is what I need you to do. We haven't seen all of these dialogues yet. I want to see them all. I hope we get to see them all and what happened. Particularly the one I want to see, Jason Todd's.
Oh, yeah. I still want to see that one.
Yeah. Supermandy mentioned it in one of her articles, and I totally agree with her. In Life in the Gutter, she mentioned that, and I'm 110% on board. I was thinking the same thing. When he walked up, I'm like, what, where is it?
Come on, I thought we were going to get to see it.
But I think there's a reason why we haven't seen it.
I think
we are going to get those details.
Battle for the Cowl, we're going to see it.
Oh, yeah, and I think we've already seen the reason why we don't know yet. It would reveal too much, so that's cool. Katana's ritual to connect with her family was very slick. Team books with characters who aren't in solo books have the advantage in that the writer has the freedom to really delve into cultural background, increase the depth and understanding of the character, and I liked that continued exploration here. Halo helping out in New Orleans added a real-world flavor. Every so often I do like to see heroes lifting the spirits of those who've gone through something traumatic. It's just as heroic and necessary. It took time out to, make these kids think that they're flying and, put them out there and do all that. I like those moments. That's really great. That's psychologically helping children to have a better outlook on life. Those kids from that moment may lead a more optimistic path in their life because they had that one small moment could change everything for them.
Yeah, it's if someone only has despair and darkness in their life, it's very difficult for them to reach beyond where they are. Say, I can be something. I can be somebody. It's that support structure. And this one moment where they got this ray of light, where they had this pure child happiness, joyful, cool, hoorah moment, that may be the thing that makes them say, hey, I'd like to maybe go to college. Maybe I could be a pilot, or maybe I can be an astronaut and, fly again,
You believe the impossible is possible.
Yeah.
So you can get past those things. Wait, think about it. Pretty girl superhero comes to our town and makes us fly for 5 minutes. You're going to remember that. You're going to talk about, we'd still be talking about that today.
We'll meet a comic creator and we're like, wow, that was cool.
But that's what I mean.
It's that
you meet people, a great example. You meet people that are important to you. We've been lucky enough that we've gone to conventions where we've met a lot of creators we really like, and you've had the opportunity to thank them for their work, and just to have that contact for that small moment is something you're always going to remember, that you did that. It made the convention trips worth it. And those type of things, you're right. There are people that are heroes to us. They do something for us every month. They entertain us every month. And that is something, you're right. They're celebrities to us. And it's important to be able to, and that's cool. That's a great comparison. I wasn't even thinking that way. Metamorpho's a survivor. It's great to see that Rex had such a great understanding of his abilities. When Remac exploded, he hitched a ride partially into Katana. And she needed to come back to the headquarters so he could merge with the rest of himself. Like, he's a little sick in the process. But,
Here's the thing with Metamorpho. I always kind of liked it, Shift, a little bit more.
And that's because Shift is
is my Metamorpho,
right.
And just his personality. And I just remember just seeing this guy develop and become, emotional with, the Brainiac and all that. I was like, oh, then when he's gone, when he, commits suicide, by jumping in the Rex, I was like, dang it, I like that guy. And now I'm seeing Rex. I'm like, okay, I read the Metamorpho year 1. I'm like getting the background behind the guy. I've seen him in a couple things where he's throwing down and whatnot. So he's another character that I'm like, okay, I can see this guy. I can dig this. And, just, you mentioned with his knowledge of his power. That was just so sweet when she started yakking him up. I'm like, what? Oh, okay, cool.
Metamorpho year 1 you mentioned. Black Lightning year 1, assuming you're reading that.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. Great series. Are they, for you, helping you to get attached to characters you didn't have? Because, I read the original Batman and the Outsiders, which featured both of those characters. So my history with them goes way back. I read every issue of that series. I'm a Batman geek. That's kind of my thing. So when that book was out, that was my team. So seeing these guys back together again, for me, is kind of like they brought the band back.
Yeah.
It's not for you. Your band was a different band. It's like the different Van Halens. It's you had a different Van Halen in this case. Completely different members for your Outsiders. For you, are those year 1 books helping you to get attached to characters that you didn't know previously? Are you finding them worth it?
With Metamorpho, he gave me that background behind the character that I'm now more willing to give the guy a chance, because I see who he is, kind of get the groove and the vibe of him. The Black Lightning year 1 is just fed so much of my coolness on this character that, I was already pumped and stoked when we had the whole resist thing where he's being chased by those hellhounds, throws the water, Black Lightning, and he blasts them.
He was cool.
Yeah, and seeing that exact same type of character in this year 1, I now see this guy has been this cool, this awesome throughout his entire career.
That is a great year 1 series.
Yeah,
that Black Lightning one. If you're missing that and you're just kind of like, I'm not really into Black Lightning, you may want to change your tune on that bad boy, because that is a really good year 1 title right now. So that's one I can't recommend enough. That's when you just mentioned that in passing. I was just kind of like, well, let's talk about that a moment, because you are in a different place when you're reading the year 1s. They really are for you.
Year 1s.
yeah. I mean, really, in a sense, because you don't have much exposure to these characters. Black Lightning more so because of Justice League, but.
And also the other one, Huntress, really helped me out. I knew who she was, and I had a pretty good knowledge of her background, but seeing just that all lay out, just how the mob connection, why she really hates the mob, and just how, nasty and, she was in the beginning, and seeing her current status where she's not, as much a killer as she is a hero. And she doesn't, cross the line, and, she upholds the code of you don't take a life, where back before we saw her as the Huntress. And we saw where she came from, so.
And that's true to going back to her early appearances in books like Nightwing and keeping going back further than that. That it's a character that had to be revamped when she was no longer Helena Wayne, Bruce's daughter, because of the merging of the Earths and things like that. They gave us Helena Bertinelli. And I'm glad to see that origin is so true to her history straight on through since that character's been developed. Because she is, more so than a lot of the characters featured in year one, she is a more recent character than those characters. Because, Metamorpho's got a Silver Age history. Black Lightning goes back to the 70s. Helena Bertinelli is a more recent character. Granted, she's got a rich history at this point. I guess more recent, relatively. I'm like, how long I've been reading comics. She's not that recent, but she is compared to the other ones, Green Arrow, which was another great year one. Those year ones so far, they've made some really good...
Yeah, I've enjoyed those.
Yeah, and then Teen Titans one was another good one. All of them. And if you're looking for a good read, for anybody who's maybe a new DC reader, and you're kind of like, what are some good books to read to kind of get a flavor for characters and their history, to kind of get me on board, because I haven't read much of them. Teen Titans year one was great. Green Arrow year one was great. Huntress, you mentioned. I'm not saying you have to grab all of them, but I would grab some of the ones you're interested in. That Black Lightning one... Yeah, that's still in your comic shops and single issues. Grab that's great. Metamorpho was another great one with good art. So it was there was a great cliffhanger of this one with the death and the snack offering of the guy of himself as a sacrifice. I mean, it's creepy stuff that reminds us that the outsiders explore the dark side of the DC universe. The missions no one else takes or is even aware of. They tend to explore the underbelly that basically the Justice League and the JSA doesn't have time for. Because they're so busy dealing with the big, epic, cosmic things. They tend to get the dark, seedy stuff, that the dirty jobs.
Yeah. The jobs that a lot of the bright, clean-cut heroes aren't going to touch.
No.
And they can't touch because you need to be a little bit dirty to deal with it. You need to, get your hand, throw down, and
it goes back to the roots of the outsiders. Yeah. Tomasi, again, it's another book that he's one of those names right now that honestly I just grab because his name's attached.
Yeah.
All right, talking about the other time we were doofuses, me in particular, I was so convinced. I'm like, first one I said was Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon.
That was the first. That was our first
Nightwing
thought.
and Flamebird. I'm talking about Action Comics 875 here. I'm like, okay. Then I kind of evolved it a little bit. I thought it might be possibly Tim Drake. And really a lot of that hinged on who is Red Robin going to be, which I always thought it was going to be Tim Drake. But then I was thinking, well, if by some way it winds up being Jason Todd, maybe Tim Drake will be Nightwing. And so I started thinking that.
Yeah, I was thinking Connor Kent. I was throwing out Connor Kent, thinking, I wonder if it's Connor come back, or maybe it's a clone of Connor. And I'm thinking all this
stuff. The artificial powers swerved me.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it. It was a story-driven concept that worked. It got me. And if somebody, I know that there were people out there that said that they had guessed that it was Chris. Chris makes sense.
Yeah.
Chris Kent. It makes sense that it'd be Chris. I love that it's Chris. And then, Thera, Akvar, who was Kara's childhood friend, who was a security person with Allura and all that. I thought at first she might be Superwoman.
That's who she was one of the ones I was thinking of, I kind of saw her a little bit darker, a little bit not on the human side.
Right.
So that's why I really wasn't thinking her for Flamebird, because I'm like, she doesn't like humans.
The hair. Remember the hair difference, too, because the first costume, you had the long hair that looked like Barbara Gordon's, which obviously was part of the illusion that they were creating at the time. And Chris's outfit at the time was a little bit of an illusion as well. So it shows that they were using some image inducer or something like that to change their appearance slightly. I liked the twist. I was really glad that they did that. It was cool. And I know, of course, obviously, once the Superwoman reveal that Superwoman isn't Kryptonian, obviously I knew then that it wasn't Thera, but right. I didn't then drop Thera into this role. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, I didn't even.
They swerved me.
Yeah, it was a beautiful swerve, and I fully admit I didn't see Chris be. Well, I kind of had. It was a couple of times I know I said, "Hey, it could be Chris, maybe," but I was never passionate.
You were a lot closer than I was because I didn't even think of Chris
I was more
at all.
thinking Connor. I was thinking a clone of Connor.
I was thinking
something
that
like
because
that.
Of the telekinesis.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that I kind of had my mind locked on that, but. I like the fact that we're seeing just a little explanation on why Chris looks older. The Phantom Zone is kind of shifting him a little bit. He's aging.
Well, he's gotten
shifting.
some
He's
illness
changing.
from the Phantom Zone. So he's rapidly aging is what's happening. It's not so much he's shifting and changing. He's aging at a rate that he can't seem to control, which is a scary, creepy thing because unless that's stopped, he's going to die early. Really early. Because he's growing at a pretty quick click.
And here's the thing that's got me worried is, one, he's going to, it's going to take a year for him to die. So just as Clark comes back to Earth, Chris will have died of old age or something. I'm worried something like that's going to happen.
Right.
But I don't know.
I don't want to see that happen.
I don't want to see it happen. I'd rather see him have to get locked into the Phantom Zone.
I'd rather see him cured.
Well, yeah.
I'm thinking
there's going to be no cure for him.
Yeah.
I'm looking negative at this. I'm thinking they're not going to be able to cure him, and he's going to be locked in the Phantom Zone.
You know what I want to see?
Huh.
Nightwing versus Connor Kent.
Ooh.
Blackest Night.
Oh, dang.
I want to see that.
That'd be an interesting fight. Yeah.
Because we got a kid now that's old enough that would be an interesting toe-to-toe. I would like to see that.
Yeah.
I do like that these costumes, though, the illusion of artificial powers is in place because Kryptonians aren't allowed on Earth.
Yeah.
And that was a great storytelling element. It fits this whole thing, with what happened with New Krypton and the fact that these people can't be trusted in the eyes of the humans. No Kryptonians are allowed, so these guys are under the radar. But I like that they're there because they both have a mutual distrust and hate for Zod. And they're trying to take out his sleeper agents. How cool is that?
Dude, that is just... And here's the thing. Another where I smacked myself in the head saying, dummy. I didn't even think Zod would plant sleeper agents like that.
No.
It never entered my mind that he would do that. I was thinking he was going to go with a classic, frontal assault on the Earth, not a multi-sided attack where he has his sleeper agents, his sleeper cells, more of a covert operation against mankind. No, I was thinking he'd just come in with superior firepower and just blast everybody to non-existence. So once again, hoorah on the story where it's, showing more of Zod. Zod isn't just the maniacal villain who's, I'll destroy the world. No, he is a general. He is a gifted military leader who is equally powerful and equally intelligent. I love that stuff.
It's interesting that we learn Thera's background with Zod. Allura really doesn't get it. She's blinded by Zod, and I wonder how this is all going to play out when she learns the truth. How is Allura going to deal with that? Because Allura isn't a bad person. Allura thinks she's doing the right things for her people. She really, do you believe that? I don't think Allura's really, I think she's bitter and angry because of what happened to her husband, but I don't think Allura's evil. Unless, do you think I'm wrong?
No, I agree with you. And I'll tell you right now, originally I thought she was.
I did too.
I really thought she was a new Krypton, corrupted, just, she's just a bad seed. And I was thinking somehow that Kara's father would still be alive. Mm-hmm. Or something would happen where, that's would stop.
Oh, okay.
He would come back somehow or something like that. And that's what would, switch and get rid of New Krypton. I'm now thinking Allura is going to step up.
Oh, I think so too.
And she's going to be the one to go toe-to-toe with Zod and say, no. This is not the way we do things.
And I think
you're done.
I think she's going to realize that she, unwittingly, has gone against the ideals that her husband had set forth.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to happen in the long run. I'm going to be interested to see the journey to get there, though, because right now she's very much so moony-eyed and swooning over Zod, and thinks that Zod is the second coming.
Zod is Krypton.
Yeah. I'm glad this is all interconnected with the events of New Krypton. Ursa shows up, and I can't wait for this battle. It's a great cliffhanger. Any worries I may have had on Superman not being in this book, which we talked about that. I wasn't really deathly worried because of the creative team, but they're totally gone now because this is so much interconnected with what's going on. We'll talk about World of New Krypton in a second because I'm jumping right to that. But the events are very interconnected, and this feels like a very large, epic story, and hats off to creative for doing that, because it really does feel like the events that I read in World of New Krypton, when we get to that in a second, very much are echoing and affecting this, and vice versa. because there's questions about Ursa in World of New Krypton, and I do like that we're seeing shadows of this. These books affect each other, and these stories haven't separated. They are totally interconnected, and we are just seeing one big, large Superman story here being told, where we're getting a glimpse into every pivotal figure that's involved in this story. And why don't we just jump right to World of New Krypton, because I have to talk about this. What a great issue that reminds us what separates Clark from the rest of the Kryptonians. His experience comes into play here. We see him teach one of the Labor Guild to fly. That was a well-written moment with the up, up, and away, and showing us that flying is not as easy as it often seems. There is skill involved to use his powers. And I would actually like to see him be an agent of change for Krypton, where the guild eventually gets some political voice. I liked it. It was a surprise element for me. I didn't expect this to take that kind of a twist in there, and I don't know how far they're going to go with it, but it was interesting how interested I got into the hierarchies of New Krypton. I'm glad that the historically different costumes have meaning by guild. You know, that we've seen different ones in the comics throughout the years, and that has to do with guilds now.
Now, is the guild concept something that they've always had? Because no idea about this.
I don't remember this.
Okay, because I ate this up, just how the different guilds had different things. You had the service guild, who really are kind of everybody's labor. And I liked how Clark just naturally just lashed out against this, being the person who grew up on in America, where it's everybody is equal, and there are no people who are subservient to other people. And it's, I ate that up. It was that whole American way aspect of Superman playing out once again. And they're like, no, this is Krypton's way. You are no longer Earthling. You are set in a guild. And I was just, that whole political stuff, I ate that up.
Oh, I did too, yeah.
Oh, man. That was a multiple read through. And one of the things that, sometimes, people that I work with will ask me questions, hey, what's new in comics, or what's new? They'll make the mistake, and usually they only do it once. Because I'll go well beyond any answer. Like, they're expecting, pretty cool, some neat stuff coming out. No, I'll go into in-depth, and one of the things I did talk about was this whole world of Krypton.
Spoil plot twists and whatnot?
Oh, yep.
Of the comics you're reviewing?
Yeah. I give them way too much. Well, it's the more of the I keep going until I see their eyes roll back in their head, and they start begging me to stop. That's when I, start slowing down.
Remember Airplane?
Yeah.
Did you see Airplane 2? Remember when he sat down next to that old lady and, she starts, throwing up into the bag? But then you see her afterwards and she's like this, she starts getting physically sick about it. Then afterwards you see her, she's like this dead skull. I do feel like that sometimes. Like I'll start, my wife will ask me a question about comics and she's doing it just to genuinely be interested. And I really do think one of the reasons she doesn't read comics is me.
Yeah, probably.
It's terrible because I know I'm guilty of this. So it's not even an issue of like I have any blinders on that, oh, yes, I'm just very welcoming with this type of thing. I do think I'm better now that I release it this way because I think I'm more subdued when I talk about it with her now because I have this as an outlet to just – because I think that's what it is. We enjoy this stuff so much that we just want to let it out. And this, for you and me, has provided the opportunity to do that. So I do find that I'm better at giving shorter answers, more concise, that are more like appropriate for somebody who isn't looking to get scared.
Honestly, I can actually sometimes I give the shorter answers at work, but there are certain people that I just give the long answers just because I enjoy annoying them.
Yeah, well, I mean, see, I'm my example of my wife probably isn't a really good one, but there'll be times where, or there's times where I think people are more into this than I realize, and you can tell that they're like gradually like edging away. They take one step back, then two, and
okay, yeah, well,
they're afraid I'm going to tackle them if they try running.
They start looking at their watch, going, "Wow, look at the time."
And they can tell from the look in my eyes that I may. It's one of those things because I'm really into the conversation at this point. So it's no longer about them; it's about me.
Or as they start walking away, you start following them and you continue talking.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that one? Because I've done that one.
Oh, yeah.
I follow people back to their cubes and they sit down.
You don't
I
care
continue
anymore.
talking.
It's all about talking about this. I liked Clark pretending to turn his back on Earth to reconnect with his people. It works better for me than any other explanation. Like, I didn't want him to, like, divorce Lois, or I was really worried about stuff like that. I like that Lois is in the know, that his mom's in the know, but he kept this very covert. This is like a covert op for Clark. And I really like that he really pulled his family in and made this decision with his wife. It's important to me, and it's a hats off to creative, whoever made that decision, or however many writers made that decision. Yeah, thank you so much, because it really has invested me and involved me in this story. He knows how dangerous Zod can be, and we quickly learn here and in the events in Action Comics right now that he's got a reason to be worried. That is important to me. This established the fact that he was right to do this. This was the move he needed to make. There's something big going on here. We don't know as the reader yet. These sleeper agents, that's the tip of the iceberg.
That's the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and part of me, when he was going through this whole choice in this guild, how he was refusing to make a choice in the guild, part of me wonders if that was just a giant play on Clark's part.
I think so too.
Yeah, because he knew if he said, I want to be in the military, they would know he was doing it to be close to Zod.
Right.
So he had to pick nothing and, quote-unquote, force them to go into the military. Because that was the only logical placement of him.
And that's how he could keep an eye on Zod.
Yeah,
it's logical placement because of his experience and what he can bring to the table for training the military force. Brilliant move on his part.
Tell me that wasn't just a cool scene when he's sitting there and they're all practicing their heat vision, and each one's blasting one target at a time, and they're kind of like puffing their chest out at him, and in just one blink, he takes out all the targets, and he's like, yeah, you have the same powers as I do, but I've had a lifetime of training with them. I was just like, oh, yes!
It's almost like he's inspiring them.
Yeah.
Like a leader would.
Yeah, and he's doing it very reluctantly.
What was reluctant about that? He blasted everything in sight.
I think he's doing it reluctantly.
Yeah, I can tell. You saw different artwork than I did. I do, it was really, that was a great moment, though, because Clark, because of the fact that he has to hold back on his powers a lot of times, you very rarely get to see him react like that. But I like that he put his foot down and, played big dog in the yard. Because that also, I agree with you, this was his power play. He, from the second he flew in there, when he was being followed by Zod's followers, was showing them, I can be a bully. I can step up to you. I can do all. And he did that on purpose because he wanted them to see him as a military power. He wanted them to see his value as a military strategist, so that way he was put into the military guild. There's no way the son of Jor-El didn't know that there were guilds and what they were all about. He was playing on that deliberately. I agree with you 110%, and it's a brilliant strategy move. This issue, when I read it through the second and third time, I'm like, oh my gosh, is Clark brilliant as a strategist. We often look to Batman as the strategist. I think we forget how good of a general Clark can be.
Well, and I think it's partially the association with Diana and with Bruce.
The Trinity coming in. It's the people he surrounded himself with.
He's learned from the best on how to be a warrior and how to be a strategist and how to be a hero.
A great leader surrounds himself with great people.
I'm just going to let this go.
I am, you know what, though? It's funny. I'm very Clark happy. When you were talking about the guilds before, my consistent reading of Clark began with Byrne's Man of Steel. That's not to say that I read as a child Superman. I've since gone back and read older issues of Superman. But that wasn't consistent, and it's different when you're talking about how much do you know about the character's rich history. I've always liked Superman. I've always been a fan of Superman. My childhood, it was Batman. That was the book I was consistently getting because I didn't have the option to get both. So when Byrne's Man of Steel hit, I always liked John Byrne's art. I followed that, and I followed Clark pretty consistently with very few moments of time off since then. So is it possible that this guild thing was a part of it afterwards? Yes. It's possible that it was established in something they haven't read. So I'm not comfortable saying that it hasn't been established previously. That's why I'm saying that. It also may be something from the Silver Age that I'm not aware of. So it's interesting. That'll be something for our listeners to kind of come back and a Superman fan can sit there and say, I mean, I am a Superman fan. It's funny that I make it sound like Byrne's Man of Steel was a number of years ago. I've read a lot of Superman since then. I haven't read everything, though. And you can't, I'm not going to pretend that I've read every single issue of every single Superman title since that time. But I've read a lot. I don't remember that. So it'd be interesting to see if that I'm curious. Your question's a good question. Has this guild thing been established? Is it something that's been established in current continuity? Clark clearly knows about it.
And I know right now there's somebody listening to us saying, of course, it was in such and such, such and such.
And that's what I want to know. 'Cause
Please let us know.
I would like to read that.
Yeah.
So if it has been established in current continuity, I would like to do that. It was a great first issue that really established for me that it's the man, not the powers, that define who you are. And I really liked that moment. Superman is really at its best at its moment because of these creative teams that are on these books.
Yeah, and it was, you think about back when Up, Up, and Away came out, and he didn't have his powers. And we said it was so cool to see Clark as a man, but still the hero. Now we're seeing a Superman surrounded by other Supermen, people with the exact same power, but once again, we're seeing why he is Superman. Why he's not just Kal-El, son of Jor-El. There's something more to this guy than just the powers.
Secret Six, number 7. We got to talk about this.
Oh, always. Anytime, man.
The team is recovering from the fallout of Deadshot turning on them last issue. This is what I adore about this book. It reminds us every so often that this is not Outsiders, JSA, etc. This is a team of villains. I really like the title page. Everything overlaid on a roadmap, with each panel showcasing the various players in this chase movie sequence. I'll say it again. There's an energy that comes off of each page of this book. It's what keeps me coming back every month. Keeps me smiling from ear to ear. It's my favorite book. Easily my favorite book.
Easily.
They band together because it is to their personal benefit. The bits with Deadshot and Tarantula are great. I think she hit the nail on the head. They would all be dead if he wanted them that way. The flirtation between them works on so many levels, but I think she also caught what he was up to all along. And I really liked those moments. That it isn't as simple as he turned on his teammates. He really was doing something for everybody. He just refuses to admit it. And there is a point where he does later, and then actually it's backed up by his actions. I really liked this, that he's not a simple character by any stretch.
Dude, I ate that up so much. When he first turned on the team, I was like, wow, that's cool, because, these are the villains. These are going to turn on each other. But there's more to the turn. And It was just, I ate it up, because it was just like, yes, he's still a villain, but it makes sense. It's like when we first saw them back in that convenience store. When they beat the crap out of those bad guys,
right.
Get what they want and leave, and then he just stops like, well, are you going to leave those guys in there with those innocent people? Hold on, I'll be right back. And he goes, and, Catman goes back in there and does, what he's got to do. So it's like, oh, yes.
I do like that as a reader, you truly care about these characters and want them to develop friendship bonds. That comes from strong characterizations, but there will always be limits to the amount of trust between certain members of the team. I liked the swerve, the end of issue 6. We thought he turned. Yep. And then once again, the creative team comes back to the next issue and says, now you're going to know the whole story.
Yeah.
I like that they mess with us. I really like that. I also like that even now, I can't make a blanket statement about each member. Jeanette, for example, still a very unknown quantity, and love that. Scandal has already shown she will show loyalty in her relationship with Knockout. Ragdoll just plain has issues. They're all misfits, but they do fit together as a group. You never forget that they are villains, though, and in spite of all that, you need to keep an eye on them as they're going on. If you're a member of this team, you never want to, completely shut your eyes, turn your back, things like that. You want to just keep an eye on what's going on around you.
Well, come on, how about Bane, man? I loved the Bane sequences where he needed to, kick it up a notch. And he knew there would be consequences of him taking the Venom, but he needed to do it at that point in time. And I was just like, oh, yeah, because I want to see what's the repercussions of him taking that shot of Venom. Is he going to be more over the edge? Is he going to be able to tailor back again, get control of himself? That's a huge what's going to happen now.
Well, it's a great Bane moment, back using Venom again. He's broken my heart, fellows. When he chose to run me over and kill us all, I hate when friends do that. I love this opening sequence with Ragdoll where he's talking about that. The team heads to Gotham after the Cardin Deadshot. Stopping on the bridge because of how deserted it was classic. It showed that Deadshot is a thinker. Catman is having his moment of revenge on Deadshot. It feels, that he is betrayed, but I love that he still wanted answers. It shows that nothing's simple again. This is cut short by everyone who is after the card turning up on the scene. Floyd finally admits he was trying to do this job for them. He wanted to bring an end to all of this, and I believe him. I really do believe him. It actually works for me. Gail's a fantastic writer when it comes to Mad Hatter. He looks like he's having a very twisted tea party watching this battle royal. Jeanette doesn't mess around. I mean, she took a good long look into the eyes of the pirate, who was about to carry the face of Lawton in his pocket. I do have to disagree with Floyd here, though. The guy did make sense with his threat. It's just a dumb thing to do. What happens when you reach for a Kleenex? Really?
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's not a good place for a face.
No. Well, I guess he'll just use his sleeve then.
Yeah, no,
he doesn't have to
that's
use
a
the
good
sleeve.
point.
Yeah.
What's a sleeve there for?
Yeah.
Yeah. Junior shows up on the scene, and it's so wrong that I found humor in him throwing the kid's dad off the bridge.
Yeah. No, my dad. You're welcome. I'm like,
Did you notice it almost looked like the kid blew off the bridge?
Yeah.
I mean, the dad did, I should say. When the kid calls him on it, Junior tells him, "You're welcome." Junior rocks. He just so rocks. I was laughing, though, with the whole bridge sequence because I'm like, this is so a Jim segment. This would be where Jim, the hero, would be running off the bridge like you were talking about, or getting help. Or we'd see you clamp down to the bridge. I'm Bridge Man. I'll get you help. Here's my cell phone.
Oh, yeah, I was laughing because as I'm seeing this huge fight on the bridge, I'm like, no way. Nope, not going to happen.
It was a great sequence of events, though, and I really liked that. I liked that Floyd noticed that it was weird that the whole bridge was deserted. That was really an important sequence of events for me because that led to him getting out and, it's like, this is Gotham. What is this doing deserted? Doesn't make any sense. And that led to the reason why he even stopped on the bridge to begin with. It was a great sequence of events that totally makes sense considering Gotham and a great place for an ambush.
Yeah, that was just one of those. And now I'm thinking with the whole mist and all that type of stuff, when they saw everything was going, that was somebody else's powers creating the cover screen and all that. And that was something I kind of ate up thinking, okay, there's, we saw it in the X-Men movie, where Storm, would bring in a storm over and cover over whenever the plane was landing or any of the fight sequences when they needed ground cover. So just the multiple layers of this villain team, because those were just, villains for hire, hired guns, mercenaries. So the fact that they were working together as a team, and you even saw their team dynamics as different people are focusing on different, targeting. It wasn't just a crazy try to kill them all. No, there was kind of a focused attack on that, and I like that.
Wow, Bane back using Venom, just like you were talking about. The panel that really shocked me, and the one I'm really thinking about at the moment, is when he bursts out of the top of that vehicle. It was a very powerful moment at that point. And he takes out Kimodo with ease, and we get a glimpse into what his whole battle with the Bat did to him psychologically. And I liked that exploration, because to me, he was always an interesting psychological character as well as a physical being, and I'm glad that, he was on top of the world for a time, only to have it all taken away by Jean Paul Valley, later to be defeated by a returning Bruce. All of that and his addiction to Venom has taken a toll on his psyche. I'll be curious, like you said, where it goes from here with the team, because it's clear he's staying with them, and it was just a great moment. Can we just have the art team create an Elseworlds Bat title? I want to see them, one panel, and I love this. I want to see them do more variations on the Batman outfit.
Yeah.
I really liked that you saw everybody as Batman through Bane's eyes, and there were little tiny variations that fit the individual characters. It was a beautiful sequence, and it was colored very well to show that we were seeing it through like a Venom-like haze, and it was just really well done. I was glad to see Scandal's emotional reaction to what was happening with Bane. It shows that he did make a connection with her. Huntress and Thomas always have some of my favorite moments. I think she sees the same potential in him that we do. He's a wonderful character, in the sense that you can't help but see the good side and the conflict that is also his twisted nature. I think we often feel the same disappointment that Huntress does when it comes to him and some of the things that happen. I like that about him, though. He feels very real, because we all have people we know like that.
Yeah, they can...
Not on that level, but you know what I mean.
It's the people who, there's so much more to them than what they know.
Yeah.
And what they can see themselves as. And you just want them to see themselves the way you see them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's definitely a hero in there.
Right.
And a hero who could come out and at any time, but there's always something holding him back. There's a darkness in his soul. We saw, through these past issues, what he did to those poachers. And
Right.
that was some nasty stuff.
You haven't had your redemption yet, Thomas.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. You don't need the card if you have your redemption.
Yeah.
What do you think of Deadshot letting Tarantula go when Junior shows up? I really needed these moments with him because we see more and more that she was correct about his motives.
Oh, yeah, that was just... I liked the fact that we had that nice connection between the two of them. It was something... There was like a flirtation between them
huge
in the
flirtation.
beginning.
Yeah.
That I kind of dismissed as just being, Deadshot being, little Randy there.
Well, it was her
Yeah.
who was also being a little randy with him. Remember, when reaching into the pocket, getting the keys, and talking about how she knew that he wasn't scared. Those are moments that shows that, she was having a little, thing with him as well. I always liked Tarantula. Did you read any of Tarantula in Nightwing, or was that before you were reading Nightwing?
No, I have not read any Tarantula.
She's a cool character. Really cool character. I was glad to see her used here. She should put us know more, but yeah.
She was a cool character.
Yeah, but she's a good choice of a character because she's really basically been shelved till now. So I'm glad that they pulled her in and that they used her so true to her roots because she fits this role. It really was an interesting she was one of those characters that skirted the line, and she fits totally this.
And who knows, maybe Blackest Night we'll see her again.
Yeah, well, you can see anybody again. The showdown with the Mad Hatter and Junior was great because it did show us that the Mad Hatter is a top-tier villain. Yes, he's twisted and looks goofy, but there's something effective about him. This moment actually made both that much more interesting and intimidating versus detracting from either of them. Junior actually cut the fingertips off a ragdoll. I'm assuming we're going to get artificial ones from this, because he's got artificial joints and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But very creepy. Imagine their family reunions. There's aunts and uncles that are just as...
You get your creepy uncle that you're like, you don't want to spend time with.
Yeah.
Talk about creepy, sister and brother.
Yeah. There's no way two kids that, turn out like this don't have a family that's equally as just bizarre. Bane comes in, and he is really this force of nature when he's under the influence of Venom. Batman Venom is a fantastic story. If you want to see what Bruce was like under the influence of this drug, it was in Legends of the Dark Knight, number 16 to 20. It's also collected in trade, but I think the trade's out of print. I might be wrong on that. I tried to look for the trade, and I couldn't find it anywhere with a place selling it new. I looked at in-stock trades first, and I think it's not in print right now. But it's easily something for a con purchase if you're looking for their issues 16 to 20. And it's the story that kicked this off. It introduced Venom. And you see Batman under the influence of it and what that looked like, and then that led to Bane using it again in the regular series. So it's an interesting story for anyone who wants a little background in it. Quit undressing me with eyes, perverts. As the battle with the Secret Six begins, I did like seeing Deadshot and Catman come to an understanding there. Thomas does this. It's funny, the two of them were ready to kill, Catman was ready to gut him, and all of a sudden there's a smile between the two, like all is forgiven, and it's kind of like, let's move on and do what we do best.
Part of me thinks we're going to get a head or gut moment. If you remember from the last Boy Scout, Bruce Willis, like, head or gut. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think we already had it, though. I think we had the head or gut moment.
You think we already had it?
I do. I think we had it in this, where I think Thomas is realizing now, maybe we were a little bit wrong about Floyd. Maybe.
Yeah. He still does
cover. If you take a look at the cover for the next issue, well, you're right. We may have our head or gut moment.
He still owes
it might
him
be
one.
From Scandal.
Yeah, he does. See, he still owes him one.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that they're going to be entirely. I don't think that he's done enough yet to convince them that this was all in the plan. Tarantula gives her life to stop Junior. And like I said, I really liked her in Nightwing. Great use for her. It was great to see her go out in a heroic way, because she always skirted that line, but there were moments where Dick Grayson had a positive influence on her. It was great to see that brought in here, because I really did like her character.
Yeah, the moment of sacrifice for the greater good. Is that her moment of redemption? Yeah. What's going to happen with her beyond the moment? Because I got a feeling we're not done seeing her. Not even talking Blackest Night. I think somehow where there's going to be a further connection, we're either going to see her on in the afterlife or whatnot. I'm not sure. Just something's telling me we're not done with her yet.
See, I don't think we're necessarily going to see her again, but me thinks the flaming pile of nonsense falling off the bridge contains a still alive Junior.
Yeah, Junior's hard to kill.
Yeah. And there's no way we're not going to see him again, so... Ragdoll gets a perverse pleasure out of teasing Jervis, and I endure those moments. You know, he just grabs, he's got the hat. Here, I got your little hat. And, whee!
Yeah.
It was just really funny, and it totally fit their previous history in the series when we've seen him teamed up with them before. The closing segment with Scandal hiding the card was wonderful. It did make me think beyond the page. Did she take the card for herself or for Knockout?
There's no doubt whatsoever in my mind she took it for Knockout.
Yeah.
No doubt whatsoever.
Interesting.
Interesting. That's a completely taking it to save Knockout.
Yeah. So, and maybe that's how we'll see Tarantula again. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the story's going to go there or not. It made me speculate. If it didn't, I wouldn't be like mad that it didn't go there or anything, or disappointed.
Exactly.
I think a good book makes you think about what are the possibilities now that she has this card. What could she possibly do with it? I don't see Scandal taking it for herself.
No,
it doesn't fit her.
Yeah, she's going to pay the price for her actions, but
she would take it for Knockout though.
Yeah.
So this book, highest possible recommendation. If you aren't reading this book, it's very different than anything on the shelf right now. It's very edgy. It's twisted. It's funny. There's tons of action. I mean, the action sequences in this were stellar. The artwork is gorgeous. It's got great dialogue. I can't recommend this book enough. It's just a nonstop thrill ride. 7 issues in, and this just has not let up. I've read every issue 3 times when I've gotten it or more.
Yeah,
I take it back. There are some issues where I've read them 4 and 5 times. Not because I had to, not because of the show. I read them 4 and 5 times just because I like this book so much that it's really a fun read. And the artwork has so much going on. There was this bit with Ragdoll where the hippies were the dirty hippies with their vehicle and all that stuff, and he's sitting there telling them that we're going to take your dirty van. I mean, it was just a great little segment. I really enjoyed it. Jim, I've got to talk about Battle for the Cowl #1.
Oh yeah, oh definitely.
This is one for me that this is all you Superman fans are getting your Superman event. And this is one of those events that I think is Superman accessible to everybody. I've always been a Superman fan, but that's why I misrepresent myself, because I make it seem like I'm not a Superman fan because I always say I'm a Batman guy. But I've been reading Superman pretty much so as long, just more broken. But we get to the Battle for the Cowl. This is like, for me, I'm like, oh. I gotta admit, I was shocked and pleased by how much I enjoyed this. I knew the concept from the way they build this, that Dick and Tim were going to have philosophical differences on how they saw things playing out, but this really delivered. And I have to be honest, I wasn't sure how I would feel about Tony Daniel writing this. But he did a fantastic job. This was really just great writing. The artwork's really good. I was like, whoa, where did this come from?
Dude, I was like really excited when I was reading this. This really recharged, because with Robin gone, the Robin title is gone.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like, that's my guy. Robin's my guy. Now my guy is canceled. So
and this kicked off with your guy,
right? So I'm like, okay, he's still around. We're gonna still get more of Tim. We're still getting some more cool Tim moments, and we're getting just that, the evolution of Robin moments that I was loving at the end of the Robin run. That we saw Tim, grow on to something else.
And we clearly see here that those lead very organically into this. It fits, like it feels like this takes place right after that. Gotham has quickly gone to hell in a handbasket. The population, especially the criminal element, are aware that something is up. Most assume Batman's dead. Penguin and Two-Face are both making power plays. We see the return of Black Mask and see that he is very much concerned with controlling the various villains he broke out of Arkham, to the point that he has them all implanted in a way that they're going to die from the inside out. And that was a cool visual.
Nice use. That was a nice way to control your villains. Because we always talk about the problem with villain teams is they always double-cross you. Well, here's the way to prevent them not from double-crossing you.
Did you read The Death of Black Mask? Did you see him die?
No.
Okay. Black Mask died. Catwoman killed him. That's why we had a Holly as Catwoman for a while. That was part of the whole changeover, was due to that whole event and how that all unraveled during that point. So I guess I'm wondering, is this the real Black Mask or someone else? I guess I'm leaning towards that it's the real Black Mask, but I'm like, whoa.
I don't know.
I want to know how this happened. So it's interesting. I'm glad we see Ivy ready to rebel, and really ready to rebel. She would hate being controlled by Black Mask. It's interesting to see how this will lead into the story in Gotham City Sirens.
Yeah, because she's a main player in that.
Yeah, which Dini's book. I mean, that's going to be, Paul Dini writing, her and Harley Quinn and, of course, Catwoman. So, interesting little team up there. Dick's training sequence and the commentary that he has drawn more into himself. Fitz said he's having trouble dealing with the loss of his father, and Bruce is his father. I mean, there's no two ways about it. This is Dad. With the way Alfred has been written lately, you can really just put him in any comic book, because he's clearly having some of the best moments in each month. More Alfred just seems to be a good thing for me. He is the MVP.
Yeah, Alfred's getting the Oscar for best supporting role.
Yeah.
Right there, Alfred's got it.
It's interesting that the legacy of Batman's discussed. Can the mantle truly be separated from the man? And we're going to find that out. Gotta say that Tim with the yellow circle bat costume was a geek out moment for me. Great job on the artwork with the subtle differences to let us know that someone else was in the costume. It was a little bit thinner of a face, just a little bit of a different look. It looks very Batman still, but you can tell the frame's a little different, and I liked that the visual cue, you could take the dialogue off the pages and be like, that's not Bruce.
Dude, I ate that up so much, because I always say how Tim is the heir to the mantle, and then I've kind of shifted, saying, no, I want to see, Dick will put on the mantle, and, Tim grow on to be Red Robin, and it's... seeing, Tim in the costume, I'm like, this is going to be the motivation for Dick to put on the cowl. It's got to be. Because if you think about...
Oh, no, I think the motivation's the end of the issue.
Well,
yeah. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. But if you think about it, the last Robin issue, where Tim's talking about what's going to happen to Gotham, and he's like, he says the rightful, the rightful heir will eventually assume the mantle. Until then, they have a new Robin.
And he's talking totally about Dick.
Yeah, exactly.
His dialogue is just saying the rightful heir will see that he needs to step up.
Right.
He totally sees that that's the case and that it has to be Dick. And I take it back. I think it's going to be a combination of things that's going to make Dick see it. I'll correct myself. I think you're right. I think it is going to be Tim. I think it's going to be what I'm talking about at the end when we get to it. I think it's what's going on with the citizens of Gotham and how much they need Batman. They need that symbol of Batman. They're crying for it. They're craving it, and they're craving it on the level that they will follow and stand behind anyone wearing the mantle. Which I think is going to be an interesting twist on this, with this new, we'll talk about it at the end, the gun-toting Batman at the end, which has got to be Jason Todd.
Yeah, it's got to be Todd, and it's got to be whatever Bruce told him drove this.
Yeah.
Because if you think about back in the countdown and every time we've seen him come into play and be used in the comic, he's always skated that line of he's still kind of continuing with the mission, but he's going a step over. And I don't know, it's just there's something, it's got to be Jason in there, and I don't even know if Jason's completely doing it wanting to be Batman or wanting to show Dick why he's got to step up, why he needs to be Batman, why Jason can't be. Part of me is, I want to believe that part of this is Jason playing mind games on Dick, showing him, this is why you need to be Batman.
Not Jason. I think Bruce knew that Dick needed the motivation.
Right.
I think that's what I'm saying. I think the reason why we haven't seen Jason Todd's conversation or Jason Todd's message from Bruce is that because Bruce knows his son so well, and who but a father would know that his son would have trouble assuming his mantle, assuming his legacy. And, they've been there before with Prodigal, which is a story, if anyone wants to see Dick Grayson as Robin and really enjoy something, Prodigal is a story that I can't recommend picking up enough. Some great Dick Grayson moments, with Tim Drake as Robin, and some great moments with Dick and Bruce that definitely I can't recommend reading that one enough. I really enjoyed that story. What do you think of the whole network thing? Catwoman, the Birds, the Wildcat, Black Canary, and more. The heroes.
Come on, you know me. I love calling for backup. Oh, yeah. I love that, and you need that type of layering in Gotham. Gotham is quickly descending to a place where even if Bruce was around, he wouldn't be able to control this. He would need to call for reinforcements.
But it even shows at this point, And I agree with you. It adds this sense of overwhelming. Because I think if it was just the boys, I don't think you'd get this overwhelming sense. Because even with this network, they can't seem to make headway. The symbol that they need as a rally cry is not present.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how that is so much driving this, which I think is going to be a major focal point to wake up Dick Grayson. Gordon's head's being called for. Now, this is where I want to go down there and just smack everyone in the head who's a citizen of Gotham that's standing there with a picket line. With the crisis experience that this fella has, with everything he's been through, with Cataclysm, Contagion, all this stuff that he was a part of, No Man's Land. This is my go-to. He was there in No Man's Land when it was abandoned, and he was part of the, people that were cleaning up the city and getting it back to actually be a city they're living in now. I would never in a million years want him out of that position. Who has more experience at dealing with this type of nonsense than Jim Gordon? People are nuts.
Yeah, you got to go with your go-to guy who has a proven track record in a crisis. Uh-huh. This is a cop who is a cop first, but he is also the underlining principle is protect and serve, and that is Jim Gordon. I completely understand why they're doing it. Because they're lashing out. They need something. They need something they can believe in. They need the hope, and that is the Cowl. And you even see when the bat signal comes up. The very first time it was back after the 1 year later. The first time the signal popped up, they were cheering in the street. And they need to have that again.
Right, I agree. Damian looks like he's going to be a fun Robin, and there's no way it's not Damian.
Oh, yeah.
I was speculating on it before, but duh.
Yeah, and I like we've already seen the groundwork of the relationship between him and Dick.
Right.
He's going to be Damian's teacher, his mentor, his quote-unquote father figure now.
Dick is really going to have to take the mentor role with this kid seriously. He hasn't been raised in a normal environment, so his concept of rules, very screwy. Oracle playing the parent with the controlling of the car and the ejection seat. The version of the Batmobile, very cool. I really liked that. I like the moment where Dick has to drop in and save Damian. We see him still using the glider from his solo series. They play off each other very well. You all right? Who, me? No, the other kid on the sushi menu. I mean, just great dialogue moments.
But how about, though, just that fact that, Damian picked up some girl out of nowhere. Yeah. She gets jettisoned out and she becomes crock food. I was just like, whoa, didn't see that one coming.
They are blasted out of the sky, and even though Dick is hurt, his first concern is the safety of Damian. This totally fits the core of who Nightwing is. The citizens of Gotham are looking for their symbol. It's interesting that this is the creation of Bruce Wayne. The supernatural concept has grown into something. It's a necessary component of Gotham. Dick will have to see this. Again, like we said, Jason under the batsuit, and I want to know, what is the message that Bruce gave him? It's a great opening issue and opening salvo to this. Did you read Gotham Gazette?
Yes.
I'm not going to go heavy into it at the moment, but wow, was that a fun series, taking a look at Spoiler, taking a look at Harvey Bullock, just going through these characters that have had such a life and influence with Batman and what their life is like without him. Leslie Tompkins is a character that I've been missing since she left the Bat books. And now that Spoiler's return, it was engineered, now that she came back and we found out that Leslie Tompkins actually didn't do anything to Spoiler, she's been redeemed. It's great to see her back in Gotham and reinvigorated to return to Gotham City for the purpose of saving Gotham, because Gotham needs to be saved right now, and she's found that motivation again, that lifeblood to hack it out in the... a doctor like Dr. Leslie Tompkins could work anywhere. She could work in the cushiest cities in the world. She is the true concept of a medical practitioner who believes the Hippocratic Oath, wants to help everybody. I love her. The motivation of her is really just a great moment for me.
Yeah, just as you're saying the true Hippocratical Oath, I was just thinking the exact same thing as you're saying, like, amen on that, because she's a character that I don't have a lengthy dealings with. and I don't have a strong. I know kind of who she is. I've seen a couple stuff with her in it, but yeah, this was a great just introduction to her. You see this doctor who it's same thing like a lot of times with when you see a priest in a comic book. A true priest is a servant of God. They're not there for their own glory. They're not there for anything. It's just that whole praising of, their beliefs and, strength in, they get the strength from the outside, to help, guide them to do the right thing. A true doctor is there to help people. They're there to, heal the sick, the injured. It's, this, core belief that the pure good of somebody coming out to save someone. They're a modern day hero without the power. Yeah. They make the sacrifices of the long hours at the hospital, not asking for, the extra pay. They do the extra time in the third world countries where there's not enough medical and, proper care and whatnot. It's that type of person. And you get all of that from her in just those couple short pages. And I love that was a great intro. I hope she's going to be a character who's consistently around in the Bat universe still.
It was great to see the police department being kind of refocused on again, because Gotham has had such rich characters being developed in their police department, and to have that be a focus of this one shot to kind of show us that is going to be post Battle for the Cowl as well as during it, a renewed focus of this series was really important to me as well. This was an interesting issue, and I'm enjoying this whole Battle for the Cowl event. I'm excited it's this week Azrael. We're going to be getting the first issue of Azrael, which I'm really excited to see what Fabian does with Azrael. It's going to be a fun series to talk about, so it's really interesting. Did you watch Smallville Infamous this week? Did you see this week's episode of Smallville? Last week's?
Yes, I did.
Linda Lake is back, and Clark tries an interesting tactic to avoid blackmail.
I know.
Just reveal the secret. An important episode because after all the recent events with Lana being focused on, we needed a reminder of the chemistry between Lois and Clark. And I really liked how this one did that. Erica Durance as Lois, she comes off as tough and self-confident, but has a soft side to her. She really fits my impression of what Lois Lane is like in the comics, who this character is. There's a strength to her that's really impressive, but there is also a soft core to her, which is interesting. I found myself really rooting for the two of them in this episode.
Oh my God, I was yelling at the TV, come on, Clark, no! That ending when he texts her saying, I got caught up in a story he can't meet. I'm like, no, go over there.
Yeah. And then I
walk up to her, grab her in your arms, and plant a big old kiss on her. Come on,
and I
Clark.
wanted to go over and smack him when she sent him the text back, because that should have been the bonehead's move to say, oh man, I gotta go over there.
Yeah.
I gotta go over there now because she's covering for this because she's been hurt.
Yeah. Oh.
It's like
I just was yelling, kiss her at the TV. Oh my God, it hurt. And then it's when he says it's more locked in that I can never tell her the secret. I'm like, no, tell her the secret. She can handle it.
This episode also points out the dramatic importance of a secret identity and how drastically important that is. The threat to those close to Clark, his mom losing her position, Chloe having to disappear, and even his past with Lex all get in the way of his overall goal to help. He has so much turmoil from the reveal that he's no longer effective. Great use of Doomsday.
Yeah.
It shows how 1 second can change everything. How crucial is that? If Clark had just heard the message from Chloe, what future horrors would it prevent? I mean, what are we going to see that, oh my gosh. I am glad to see him use the ring, but also to realize what dangers it could bring in destroying it. This was made more powerful by the Doomsday reveal. The fact that now that this time switch has happened, he's no longer using the any of the stuff from the...
Yeah, the antipsychotic medicine.
Yeah.
I like how they were saying, we know every time you change something, something changes. And I love what happened when they revealed what changed.
Yeah, because Linda Lake now tried to
blackmail Doomsday.
And Doomsday, crushed her real good.
Yeah. It's not a good thing to try to blackmail a psychotic killer when you're completely in restraints. Not a smart move on your part.
It showed a major distinction between him and Doomsday as well, which was an interesting establishment. One will kill to protect their secret, the other won't. Clark did not kill her. Clark used other methods to disable her, but Clark could have killed her.
Oh, easily, but he doesn't take a life.
Right. So
Rule number one,
it was
you don't take a life.
So Clark had to, and I mean, for Clark to even blackmail her was probably very hard for him to do, but blackmail her, kill her. I got to do this right now.
He was bluffing. He was bluffing completely. There's no way. If she would have, called his bluff,
But a
he
bluff
wouldn't have.
is still blackmail.
But now,
What do you mean,
blackmail.
no?
A
Blackmail
blackmail
means
is actually being able and willing to go through with your threat.
But
Clark was bluffing. There's no way he would have
But
done
it's
anything.
still blackmail if the other person believes you're going to go through with it.
No, that's tricking. That's tricking, not blackmailing.
Blackmailing is a trick.
No, it's a type of no. Actually, blackmailing isn't a trick. It's actually going through with your action.
But when you blackmail someone, you don't actually want to go through with the action. You want them to do what you want them to do. When you blackmail someone, you don't actually want to reveal that information. You might do it afterwards just to be a putz, but you're really trying to use that information to get them to do something they don't want to do. In her case, she was being blackmailed by Clark. Bluff or not, it's still blackmail.
Tomato, tomato.
Yeah, but I mean, it is. I mean, when you think about it. It's not blackmail because he was bluffing.
Let's not call it blackmail, okay? This is Superman we're talking about, man.
It still was blackmail, sorry. And I love Clark, and I loved the moment. And I loved it because Clark made the choice, in this case, to do that, which for him is probably disgusting to do. It's very out of character for him. But he had to do that over killing her because if she sent this whole event in motion again, it would hurt. He already saw what would happen, so he had no choice. It really was a no-choice moment, but it showed that Clark is willing to find other ways, which does fit Clark Kent. And I liked that. Lois had a very strong showing against Linda Lake. I liked seeing her physicality and all that, which has been a trademark of the series, where she really saved Clark's bacon in this, which shows another reason why he would fall in love with her, because she can stand her own. It was interesting to see the moments with Clark and Lois when he was going to go back through time, and she said, "You're not going to tell me, are you? I'm not special enough." And his moment where he said, "No, it's because you are that special that, I don't want to do that to you." It's interesting distinction on because he went through this with Lana. And, what his concept of what he thinks the right thing to do in that isn't always
the smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Come on, Clark. I was just like, I was so mad. I wanted to just give him the big old slap in the head, say, dude, you can't do that.
I wanted the doofus to show up. I really, really did. And that classic tension works on such a great level. Good choice. I think when I was looking on the internet that this has been greenlighted for another season, I think. And I'm happy because I'm really enjoying this ride right now, and there's a lot more story to tell. I like the concept of him having a secret identity now. The red and blue blur, which we've been kind of talking about anyway, really has become who he is. That's his quote-unquote Superman costume at the moment, which is very real-world grounded. And the reporter, tie-wearing guy is going.
And we're starting to see him dress more in the ties, in changing up his style slowly. I think we're going to eventually see him start wearing glasses. Just because to add further to it or something. I don't know. We're going to see him in glasses.
I'm fine either way on that. If we see him in glasses,
I think if not this season, if there is another season, we'll see him dressing more traditional Clark Kent.
Do you think? Let me ask you this question. See, I guess maybe my distinction here is in what I like about Smallville is I don't know that I feel he has to. I would have no problem if that's the direction it goes. So I don't want you to make it seem like, oh, I don't want it to go that way or anything. It's not that. I don't have a huge problem right now if I don't need to, like the red and blue blur thing, I really like. It fits Smallville. If he goes to the costume, I think that's fantastic too. I guess it's funny, more than seeing him in the Superman costume, I want to see him fly. I do. Yeah. I'm more interested in that at the moment than seeing the costume itself. And if the previews for next week,
Emergency Flight is the name of it, and they show him and Tess Mercer on Ollie Queen's jet, and it looks like it's crashing. Yeah. How's he going to get out of that one?
Yeah, and who knows?
I'm hoping, seeing that, I'm hoping, like, please, even if he has one of those where he jumps out planning on just absorbing the impact, and at the last minute he slows down. Or something where it's not a complete clean flight, but it's an obvious controlled fall.
Right.
I would geek out over that as well. I'm like, yay, he's starting to fly.
Just a great week of reading. I mean, there's more I want to talk about, and it's there's actually one other one I want to talk about. I got to talk a little bit about Strange Adventures #1. Starlin does it again.
Yes.
Different art team this time, but it really is just another good-looking book. Aftermath of the Rann-Thanagar Holy War opens this up. Prince Gavin speaks on behalf of Adam, which is interesting seeing as he at one point would have nothing to do with him during the war. I like that he recognized the heroic actions of Adam. Now, Adam's on trial for destroying the atmosphere of Rann to rid them of Sinar, using the weird as a weapon. Now, did I read that right? He was declared guilty 7-1? Is that correct?
No, he was innocent 7-1.
Oh, it was 7-1. So who was the detractor then? Because they all said yay or nay.
Right. So
and I thought it was yay or nay on the fact that did he use the only pass. So nay, he's fine.
Yeah, he was found innocent. Okay. He was found innocent.
At first, I read that again. I'm like, well, did they declare him innocent or guilty there? So you're taking it he was innocent.
I took it as he was innocent.
So who's the one then? I took it that the one was Prince Gavin voting for him, and the rest were against him. But
I took it that it was, his father-in-law voting against him,
which fits
and everybody else voting.
Well, especially because it started off with him bad-mouthing him.
Right.
So that's it.
That's how I read it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I like that better actually because it kind of fits later. I'm like, well, wouldn't there be a follow-up to this? So you okay? And that was the way I first read it, and then when I read it through the second time, I don't know if I was having a brain freeze or what. It's funny how they all forget, their own role being under the influence of Lady Styx. Like, you think the father-in-law at this point would recognize that, geez, I was really a doofus during all of that.
But you tend to forget your own misdoings as compared to anybody else's. It's the old Monday night quarterback type thing where they're going to second guess everything he did, but forget the fact that they dropped the ball as well.
I do like that Adam is on a mission with his wife to make sure that Rannian advanced technology does not fall in the hands of the Thanagarians. Smart tactic. I really liked that.
That was a beautiful attention to detail. And that was something I didn't even really think about.
I didn't either.
And same thing like with those marauders who were coming after Throne World because they figured Lady Styx had been there. We'll pick up the pieces. No, we are fine. Get out. I love that whole bit.
And look, these are I'm not going to take you out. It's going to be the citizens of Throne World. The illusion again being put up there that all is well and fine because it's actually worse for these people if they know that the Rannians are there because the Thanagarians are going to come, these marauders are going to come, a whole bunch of other people are going to come assuming that, hey, let's take this place over now. So, very interesting little twist there. I really liked it. Captain Comet is back. I love that his relationship with Tigor and the Omega Men caused him to get into a little misunderstanding with some local thugs. Due to his job, they were prepared for his telepathy and TK, but no one knew about his teleportation. And I'm glad that this feels like a continuation of a monthly series. This stuff has been building since Mystery in Space that Starlin did, straight on through Rann-Thanagar Holy War, continuing on. These are characters we see, the hardcore security chief, Max. His dog's back again. It feels like hanging with old friends that we've been following since that original series that Starlin's been doing. I hope they keep doing these books. I really like these 6-issue minis. It's a great way to do it. You get a nice compressed 6-issue mini for people who like trades. They're coming out in trades too. It's a great, nice, contained read. And you get but it does feel like it jumps, this felt like it's continuing just a few days after the end of that one, which felt great for me. The weird pops up when the Thanagarians are exploring Rann. Something didn't seem right with him.
Yeah, that ain't our weird.
No.
He's got the Sinar influence in him.
Is that what you took it as Sinar? I took it that too. So I was curious to see what your thoughts were on that. It's an interesting book with an interesting backup that was following as usual. And I do like that consistency about this book. We get a main story, then we get a backup story, and these all interconnect, and it's all a part of this larger cosmic story that they're doing. This is a book, Strange Adventures #1. If you are picking these up, it really does lay out, very similar to how Rann-Thanagar Holy War did it, how Mystery in Space did it. They lay out in the beginning of the issue the state of affairs. So you don't sit there and say, oh, geez, I didn't read either of the other two. This isn't my cup of tea, because I'm going to have to jump into this continuity. That seems to be the reason why people don't want to try something new is because they're like, well, there's 2 other miniseries now, and that means I got to go back and read them. You really don't. This one lays out in the beginning what the status quo is and starting a whole new story.
Yeah, and you get a good enough vibe of what's going on, and it's just a fun read. Starting off with that Mystery in Space was just something I was like, yeah, I want more of this. And
classic
I want
space
more.
opera.
Oh, God, yeah.
very Flash Gordon, very Buck Rogers, and Bus Rogers too, because we shouldn't forget about Bus Rogers.
Yeah. Now remember, if you ever say Flash Gordon, you got to say it right, dude.
What? No.
Flash. Ah!
No, see, I go back to Buster Crab, dude.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I liked that one, but there's nothing wrong with Queen. Everybody loves Queen. But Buster Crab, I go back to the original series.
Oh, okay.
Dude. That's
You go old school.
That's right. But it's retro is in.
And you got the okay, Buck.
That's it. I go back with Buck Rogers even before that.
Ooh.
So yeah, we're going classic old school serials. But it's the great thing about science fiction is it can reinvent it. This is, again, reinvented science fiction. This is taking these classic Silver Age strange adventure stories, and now all of a sudden we're reinventing them for this generation. And it works real well. It feels very today. It's great space opera. Another one, I was talking before about, if you're looking for something different with Secret Six, this is another book that if you're looking for something a little different, this has got a cosmic edge to it. There's some interesting characters of the DC Universe. You don't need to be reading any other book to read this, because it's not tying in with nothing. It's its own 6-issue little entity. And like I said, you can really pick up issue number 1. Great jump on point, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah. Nice flow through. Gave you plenty of details on what's going on. I think it's a solid read.
Yeah, it feeds you everything that you need from the previous minis. So the previous minis are well worth reading, but you don't need to do that in order to jump on board this one. So if you're, especially in a day where you're looking at a budget to try something new, just pick up the first issue of this. If it's your cup of tea, stick with the rest of them. If you like the rest of them and you want to go back and pick up the other 2 minis, and do that then. But it's a great way, pick up a single issue and see if it's your cup of tea. It really is enough right there to kind of give you a flavor, and the artwork's great. It's funny. They've had 3 different creative teams in, Mystery in Space, Rand Thanagar, Holy War, and now this one. And I'm talking about art teams. The backups with Starlin consistent, but in the main story. And I got to tell you, they've made great choices on the creative teams, in that they feel that they belong here for this. Great,
and it's a nice flow through. There's nothing jarring about the different styling or anything like that.
No.
It feels like it is one giant story.
Tyrone.
Yep.
All right. Wow, a lot of great reading. It's like I'm not done yet. There's more I want to go on, and we'll save it for the next episode that we do Speeding Bullets on. But I really wanted to make sure that we got in now with a lot of this stuff, because there's so much going on at the moment that I really want to chat about. I mean, we haven't even talked yet about Green Arrow, Black Canary, the Green Lantern books, Jonah Hex. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Titans, Justice League. So we're our next Speeding Bullets is going to be nice and meaty as well.
Holy caffeine!
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Rick Croxton from the Book Cave. And I just wanted to say that I've really enjoyed the last episode of 149, and I want you guys to keep up the great work. And Jim, I know you're concerned about bridges. I have the same thing. There's only one way to go over a bridge, is both hands on the steering wheel with a white knuckle grip, your foot on the gas pedal, floored, going down the middle of the bridge as fast as you can. And everybody should get out of the way, because bridges, as we all know, are evil. Keep up the good work, and I'll hopefully hear from you guys again soon, and we'll talk later. Bye.
I've been saving that one for a little bit, because our recording schedule, the last couple of podcasts that we've done together, we didn't have time to do the recording. So I'm like, well, let me do the voicemails that are kind of general ones that don't apply to either one of us individually. And this one came across, and it was clearly directed at you.
Yeah, hey.
And you're getting some bridge love, your bridge phobia.
Hey, you know what? There's more people out there. The more I talk about it at work, the more I'm finding people who have the same, type of hatred towards bridges that I do.
You're giving people strength, Jim.
I know.
You're doing your part. You're becoming a symbol.
It's funny. I'm actually the big I-90 bridge that,
right.
That's the bane to my existence. We drove across it when we were going to New York, because I was worried we were pushing it a little bit late, and I just punched it. And exactly his advice is what I did. I hammered that thing down, white knuckle grip. The whole time I'm like, okay, we're not going to go off the edge. We're not going to go over the edge. We're not going to go over the edge. So I'm starting to, get, my in a weird psychotic way a control over the fear. And every so often in the mornings when it's my turn to drive, because I'm in a carpool, and when it's my turn to drive, I do have those moments where I think about going across the I-90 bridge. Granted, so far every single time I've driven, I think, no, I'll just take this other route that adds like 3 minutes onto my trip so I don't hyperventilate. But I know there's going to be a morning when I'm going to take the bridge. Yeah, and it's going to be one of those moments I'm going to be driving along, I'm going to say, get busy living or get busy dying, and gun it.
Well, your stories of courage have inspired me, so it's one of those things where I'm just really glad that we get to talk about this regularly on the show.
Hey guys, Don Sanders in Orlando. Just calling to say the MegaCon in Orlando was a lot of fun. Saw some great creators, and for me the highlight was actually meeting some friends of your show who are great podcasters in their own right, Ian and Brent and Brandon, and also John and Charlie from Alternate Reality, Ian and Brent, and Brandon, of course, from Comic Timing. I was pretty humbled to meet these kind of guys because, yes, I've been reading comic books for 35 years, and I love it, but they really know their stuff. They are hardcore to the bone comic experts. I read my comics once, put them in the sleeve, stick them in the box, and that's pretty much it. And these guys, like yourselves, probably really pour over the literature and really know everything about it. But it was a joy to meet them and have dinner with them, and my hat's off to all of them. I hope I have the same privilege to hang with you and Jim someday as well. But that's pretty much it. Way to say I'm raving about. I just picked up the trade paperback of The Watchmen. I have no knowledge of The Watchmen, and I got it at my comic book store for $20 for all the issues in the trade. And I'm enjoying reading that very much. Looking forward to seeing the movie in the next couple weeks. And special thanks to Brett Casina for filling me in on what's been going on in the Batman and Superman universes, which I haven't read because I'm reading all the individual titles of other books. But anyway, hope you guys are great, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.
It's funny. I wish you keep talking about your con world tour that you want to eventually do.
Hey.
I wish I could do that because that would be fun. Like, that's one of the cons where I'm like, I'd love to hit that con at some point, and I will hit that con because I've heard nothing but good things about that con. I will hit that con at some point. I'd like to go down. Don's many times invited us to come down there and then hang out with him and go see Disney World and stuff like. Which I'm a Disney nut.
Yeah.
That's one of my other great passions and great loves is anything classic Disney animation. I love the new stuff, Pixar, any of that stuff has been great. But I'm a big fan of old school hand-drawn animation for a lot of the same reasons that I love comics. I'm a big fan of that art style, so I'd love to go out and see that for that purpose. That sounds like a great con, though.
That's on my list. That's in with some of the Wizards cons getting canceled, so I'm definitely looking for other options out there. I really wanted to hit San Antonio, but I think that's going to be gone. I think it is gone now. It may not be coming back. So when I do my year of cons, I may not be able to do San Antonio. So definitely MegaCon, jump right in there in its place. I really want to do this thing where I'm going to all these different cons. I want to hit the West Coast stuff.
Well, it'd be fun to podcast about, like, as you come back, and then we can chat about, because I can't do all the, like, when you do the year cons. You and I have different schedules as far as how we can get off of work, even.
Yeah.
So it's just not a possibility for me. Plus, my wife would have my head. Honestly, I think if I begged and pleaded, she would let me. It's not an issue of that. It's an issue of during the school year, it would be very difficult for me to do. That's the honest reality. I shouldn't dump that on her. That's not really a fair thing, because she actually supports so much of my nonsense that I make it seem like a lot of times, she is the ball and chain that keeps. She's really she's the exact opposite of that.
Here's the funny thing. I was just about to bust your chops about that, saying there's no way Mariah would say, no, you can't do that. She would be understanding and she would be okay with it. You would feel guilty when you're in the city, because I see that when every time we go to New York, you're sitting there like, oh man, I wish Mariah would have come. She would love this. And as we're like, when we were sitting there, our hotel was right there on Times Square, and you're like, oh, she would have loved this. This would have been great.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's what chews you up more than her not telling you to go. It's you feel bad when you're
because I'm out on a vacation
having
having fun, and I know that there's opportunities for her to have the same kind of fun there. So that really does, and it really is. The truth of the matter is, if I was doing all those cons, that would mean that it takes money away from us being able to do something together. and which is, when you're paying for two people to do something, it's always double the expense. So there you go at that point. And that's really what you're right. You hit the nail. And that's why I corrected myself, saying that I'm trying to talk myself out of it. Like, it's because I'm married now and I can't do that. That's a bunch of hooey.
Yeah.
By the very fact that we even do this podcast, my wife's a saint and a half. So, so you're right. That's definitely the case. I'd love to hit that con though.
Yeah.
I would like to. That's funny. There's a lot of cons that I would like to maybe rotate the con schedule that we do. Like New York, I've been enjoying doing because they do the podcast arena. But if New York were to drop the podcast arena, I would probably then not do New York. I would do another con. But they've been so good at supporting podcasts with the podcast arena that I keep going back to that. So, that would be one of those things where if New York makes that decision, then they make the decision for me to go elsewhere. But if they don't, then I will keep doing New York for that reason. But that would be an interesting, because I do need to balance out some of my cons. And this summer I might be doing Chicago again. I don't know. Yeah. So we're up in the air. The only reason why I'm up in the air, I've got a wedding that's right around that time. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and here's the thing. That may end up being the Sensei Whatnot solo flight, because if you don't go, I still probably am going to go.
I would. That's a great time.
I love Chicago.
My first time visiting Wizard World Chicago was alone. It was before I was podcasting. I didn't know anybody. I just went myself and had it's a really good time. But at this point, you wouldn't be alone.
Yeah, I know.
We know so many people there, yeah. So it's fun.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Lee, longtime listener. I don't post on the forums much, but now that the Watchmen movies finally come out, I went back and reread the Watchmen, and of course listened to your Watchmen review, your two-parter you did way back when your episodes were only in the 20s. By the way, congratulations for being on the air for almost 3 years. That's quite a fantastic accomplishment. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I found the movie to be very, very accurate and very close to what the actual printed text is. I've had several discussions with people about how the movie is actually very close to its source material, and I think that's a fantastic thing. I don't think that Zack Snyder could have did anything better than what he did right here with the movie. The movie is a fantastic accomplishment. I think that it has an opportunity to take comic book films to the next level. I mean, there's so much in that movie that it's just so mind-boggling, and it's hard to even put it all into words because it was just so much to take in. And the runtime was long, but again, it's the kind of movie that really gets you thinking and really gets you wondering if we're ever going to see another comic book movie done in that style again, because it was such a risk, and I'm just glad that they let the director go ahead and do that. But I really wanted to know what you guys thought as to how well it translated. And I heard you say that you were going to discuss the motion comics, and I have to admit I did happen to download those when those were on Amazon Unbox, and I happened to enjoy those quite a bit. I thought they were good. I thought the narrator was a little bit off-putting, having one guy do the voices. I mean, if they really wanted to deal with Watchmen in a more effective manner, I think they should have at least got a cast together to voice it. But other than that, I thought they did a terrific job, and I thought it translated very well to the screen as an animated comic book. I mean, there have been several other companies that have done it, but they've actually used full casts and stuff. The stuff, most of those comic book DVDs are done through Eagle One Media and are not, official like stuff done by DC Comics or anything like that. But I really just am totally excited and totally still geeking out about Watchmen. And I know you guys are going to say a lot about it, and you're going to probably answer my questions. But once again, congratulations on being on the air for 3 years. It's been fantastic. Keep up the good work, guys.
It's funny, this month has been so crazy for me at work. It just goes to show there's a lot of things behind the scenes people don't realize. There's weeks because, when we're not recording, I'm either editing the show, doing notes for the show, responding on the forum, doing something for the website, and I'm trying to keep up with all, and I mean, between the two of us, sometimes it's hard to keep up with all that. That's not a complaint. It's just a reality of the fact that we're also working full-time jobs.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm married and all that type of thing. So
I know what you mean. When I'm not, recording, I'm playing City of Heroes and I'm posting on Facebook. I'm, watching, TV. Oh yeah, it's tough.
You're doing notes for the show. You do a lot for the show outside of there. So I'm not throwing you under the bus. I don't mean it that way. But it was this week in particular at my job. I'm getting close to report card time, which means I'm doing assessments and things like that. Which obviously I have to take a priority over everything because that's my job. That's my career, and I love my career. It's not a complaint or anything. It's just this winds up being a busy time, and this is the time where Jim hears me a little bit more complaining about the fact that how am I going to get all this done? How am I going to get it all in, and that type of thing. So the reason why I'm even bringing this up, we were going to do a Watchmen episode as part of this today. And the reason why it didn't work out, because I told Jim, I said, I don't know how I'm going to get all my notes done for Watchmen or anything like that. And Jim was like, well, why don't we do like a more speeding bullet style? I'm like, well, okay, yeah, that, and I remember I even messaged you back and said, you know what, you're right. Maybe we'll do it a little bit more speeding bullets.
We'll do a little lighter episode.
A little lighter, right? Well, okay. I got my notes here because we were going to tonight start talking about the first half of the film. So I did my notes for like the first half of the film. I got 14 pages of notes. Which isn't a light episode for this. I don't think I had this many notes when we did the original Watchmen episode talking about the book, because that was back before we were really tackling things the way we do now. So I don't think my notes were quite, remember, for the first half, were quite as detailed as this. So, I did in my notes, I compared sequences, and we are going to chat about this. This will be our next episode. We're going to chat about how the movie compares to the motion comics and how it compares to the original work and things like that. And there's scenes that I liked better in one than the other and reasons why. And that's going to be, I think, fun to talk about. And I'm sure you have the same experience.
And we also have, when I saw Watchmen, I saw it with my sister, who is not a comic book reader at all. But because of the hype that was surrounding Watchmen, she's like, hey, I really want to see this. And she knew none of her friends would want to go with her, so she and I went to a movie and we caught it. So I have comments from her as well. It's funny. I asked her if she wanted to be on the show. I'm like, Mary, we could record, if you want. We have the voicemail line if you want to call. And she's like, no. But in all honesty, she was wonderful. And anytime I had questions, because I was asking questions and I kept asking, hey, what about this? What about this? So I've got a lot of insight in her mindset on what she got from Watchmen. So I think that's also going to have a nice little twist to it, nice angle.
Well, what happened was, it was funny. Then I said that. And then I started, after I got done with the first half of the notes for Watchmen, I started doing more speeding bullets because I'm like, well, we haven't had a chance to talk current comics. And I like to make sure that if we've gone a couple episodes without talking about really current work, I want to get that in there because, just rant and rave about some great books that I'm enjoying right now because, we're supposed to be the whole DC universe. So I wanted to get that in there. So I started doing that segment and came up with another, 12 pages of notes from that. So I'm like, oh, well, so much for doing light episodes.
Yeah.
Now we got 2 episodes worth of content prepared, which is a good thing because I'm prepared ahead with report cards and everything coming up. So we should be back on track. We also have 4 hours of conversation with Art Lyon in the can that we recorded that he talks about Brave and the Bold and his run on there. So we've got a lot of content to release over the next couple of weeks and kind of I got to edit and get out and put together as segments. So our next episode is actually going to be our discussion on Watchmen. I wanted to talk real quickly about the motion comics. Have you watched these yet?
I haven't had a chance to watch them yet, but
Okay.
I've seen some clips that you've shown me here, and I'm really curious to see the whole thing.
He made a very accurate assessment of it. I really like the way he put it. He was very fair and honest about it, and I agree with everything he said, actually. I've seen some really... And not him. I don't mean his comments, Lee's. There were some very negative ones on there where people really trashed it and talked about how abysmal it was. And I completely disagree with that. I agree with what he said. He was very fair in saying the one narrator was kind of a weakness of it. It would have been nice to have more. But I did like, there was music in the background, which had a drama to it. There was a few sequences where, and I'll talk about this a little bit more when we do it, but more of my focus is comparing the film to the original work versus the motion comic. Because the motion comic really is like a motion version of the original work. But what was interesting in it, there were certain sequences, like when Hollis and Dan are coming out of Hollis's house for the first time, and they're going down the steps. Because of the way that the comic dialogue is, that sequence is a little awkward in the motion comic. It's a little long. Like there's a pause in there that shouldn't be there, and it isn't anything that they did wrong. It's because of the fact that there's motion. You have to show them moving out the door and down to the stairs. That there's like this moment where in the film there's like some rich dialogue there. And it's done very fluidly because it's real people moving and it's got the right pacing that you can have for it. But the original comic wasn't geared to be in motion, so it's not a fault of the motion comic or the original work. It's just the nature of the medium. I do think one of the reasons why there was one narrator, being honest, is it's a budgetary reason, I'm sure. In the sense, this is a very new thing to try these motion comics as a new way to kind of expose fans to it. I actually, if anybody out there knows of people, and I don't know, Lee, if I didn't catch, was that Lee's first... no, Lee had read the original work, I think, from his commentary, because he said it was very true to the original work, so obviously he had read the original work. If there's anybody out there who's listening to the show that has never read Watchmen, but the motion comic was your first time experiencing Watchmen, if you could give us your commentary on how you enjoyed that. I read Watchmen, so the motion comic for me was an interesting way to revisit it, kind of like an audiobook. I'm a big fan of the Stephen King's Dark Tower series. I have the audiobooks of that. I read the original books, but then I bought the audiobooks because I like to listen to it in my car. I like the story enough that it's worth hearing it again for me. But by choice, I would have read the original paper book instead as a start for it, and it's fun to revisit an audio. Motion comics for me were, I loved the original work so much that the motion comics are a fun way to revisit the original work. My preference would be to read the original work. And I do like in the motion comics at the end of every chapter, it does say to experience the graphic novel and check into the original work, which I think is great. I think the motion comics are a very clever way, though, to reach a new audience that the same way you hit people that don't want to or don't have time to read the original novels, you're going to catch people that, in this case, I don't want to read the comic, I don't want to read the graphic novel, but let me check this out. I do think you're exposing artwork and exposing dialogue and exposing a great story to people who probably otherwise wouldn't pick up comics. I don't think comic fans are your target audience for motion comics. Or I don't think that every comic fan is your target audience. I think that some people maybe who didn't read Watchmen initially might have picked up the motion comic and enjoyed it that way. I'm curious, if you got the motion comic and that was your first time, tell us your thoughts on that. I would be curious to hear. Please send in a voicemail to us and just let us know if that was your experience or not. I would be curious to hear a reaction from somebody who saw Watchmen for the first time in the motion comic. Because it really is the whole comic, including Black Freighter. The only thing that's missing from there is the under the hood text segments. Now, there is a full animated movie coming at the end of this month, Black Freighter and Under the Hood. We will chat about that on the show.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
Because I definitely want to hear that one, and I also want to do the Wonder Woman DVD at some point as well. We got a lot that I want to do. I don't know if we're going to get to the Wonder Woman DVD this month, but I want to get to it because it's stellar. And I do want to say that right away. You talked about seeing the Amazonian code and how that all built in. But there's some great humor in there, some great drama. It actually, to me, it was very true to what I'm liking about the comic right now. It's not like the same storyline that you're seeing currently in the comic. It's something that I think would appeal to anybody who hasn't been exposed to Wonder Woman before. So if you're not a Wonder Woman fan, never read any Wonder Woman before, you can pick up this DVD and really kind of get a flavor for what is cool about Wonder Woman. But, we got to see that in New York in that theater with all those people, and just to have that shared experience of laughing at certain segments, hoorahing and all that. I can't rave that DVD enough. It's really a great animated feature. I liked that it was original story. I did see that there's a Superman-Batman one that's going to be coming, too.
Ooh.
And I forget which... I'm drawing a blank right now. It's one of the Jeff Loeb Superman-Batman stories that is being adapted.
Nice.
And we do have an original Green Lantern movie that's coming as well, so which will be original like the Wonder Woman one was. I'll be curious to see, because I really liked the originality of the Wonder Woman one. That was, I think, the draw for me, was that it's an original story that is a take on the classic tale of Wonder Woman, but really I really enjoyed that story because it was original. I don't know, did you prefer a more original story, or do you like the comic adaptations more? Do you like both?
I prefer the original stories,
like
because, it's, I have in my mind what the comic that I've read is going to look and sound like.
Okay.
If it's a new story, then I don't have that in mind. Mm-hmm. I need, and they're filling it in. Now, I've enjoyed all the stuff, all the adaptations.
Oh, I did too, yeah.
it's a win-win for me. But if someone were to say, okay, Jim, it's your call, original story or adaptation, I'd say original.
Wonder Woman completely sold me the original story because I really liked that DVD. I thought it was a very good take on the whole thing. I liked how they brought in Artemis. Nathan Fillion was great as Rosario Dawson was Artemis.
Yeah.
Nathan Fillion from Serenity was Steve Trevor, and he was wonderful as that.
The man can do no wrong.
Yeah.
Come on.
Who was Wonder Woman again? I'm drawing a blank at the moment.
Carrie Russell.
Yeah, Carrie Russell. And she did a great job, too.
Yeah.
Which the whole experience was it was a great experience. Matter of fact, you didn't even sound like Carrie Russell to me, which was,
no.
It was, she did a really great job. So the whole thing was great. There was a Q&A at the end, which I really had fun with. So I don't know, it's one of those that if you didn't pick this baby up, it's great for fans if you're like, I don't understand Wonder Woman. You'll understand Wonder Woman after watching this, I think.
Yeah.
And why it's cool. And you might pick up the book. Because the book's great. I love Wonder Woman right now. So, and Gail Simone was one of the writers of the Wonder Woman movie. She was one of the two involved with the story. I want to be curious how that works. That's interesting to me. I was glad to see her. I'm like, because I didn't know until after the movie was done. And then I was like, I wasn't surprised that there was some level of involvement from her in writing this. I don't know how that worked or what, because I know one was the screenwriter and the two of them were involved in the story. I don't know how that works, but I was not surprised to find out that there was some level of involvement from her on that, because it definitely it
had that same type of vibe and feel to it. And there was
what I'm liking about the current book.
There was one scene in there that it looked just like it came right out of the actual comic.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how exactly that worked, and all I got to say is to everybody who was involved in the creation of that Wonder Woman DVD, I thought that was a home run. I really thought that was a home run. We'll have to chat about it on the show because I was really excited about it. So, obviously, by the fact that we turned a Watchmen conversation into this. But I'm with you, though. I do prefer the original one. Yeah. It's interesting. And I agree with your statement, too, though, that, like, New Frontier was stellar. I liked Superman Doomsday. But I do think the original work, it's getting a new story, which is kind of interesting. So I'd like to see more original ones as they go on.
Hey, guys. Donnie Salvo here. I just wanted to give you a call and say how fantastic it was to meet you both in New York. And I hope maybe there's a con somewhere on the East Coast coming up. Maybe you guys can make. We can hang out again. And that's about it. So it was it was a great pleasure to meet you both. And you're just as nice as you sound on the air in person. So you guys take it easy. And Secret Six is still fantastic. And that'll do it.
That's good friend Donnie Salvo from the Reality Wasted podcast.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed meeting him there. It was one of the things, and I apologize to anybody, including Donnie, at the con. One of the things that's hard about being behind the table when you're recording is you don't get as much time to chat with people. Like, we were recording like crazy, and I've still got segments that we're going to be using, as kind of our closing on the show, until we exhaust them all, from New York. And I did find that I felt like I didn't get to talk to people as much as I would have liked. Like, I would love to go to a con where we're not there as podcasters, we're there just to hang. I mean, obviously, we're always there as podcasters because we're going to chat about it afterwards. But I loved being in New York. I loved being behind the table. That was a blast. I wouldn't change it for the world, so this isn't a negative thing. The only small part that I didn't like was the fact that great people like Donnie, Donnie, I'd love to sit down with a beer and just chit-chat with.
Yeah, no, it's...
and there was a lot of that. A lot of people that I ran into that I'm like, I didn't get enough of a chance to chat with. Like, Donnie, we're going to have Donnie on the show at some point to chit-chat because I wanted to get him behind the mic, and we didn't end up working that out at the con. But he's definitely somebody who's become a friend, especially fellow podcaster, to be able to chat with him. So there's a lot of our fellow podcasters, a lot of our friends who were listeners of our show who now have their own podcasts, and they're great podcasts out there. We've a lot of the guys on here. And please, guys, whenever you do call up, do shout out your podcast. I'm all about cross-promotion. I wish I could do it, I want to do crossovers more often than not. It took us forever to get one together with Comic Timing we did recently. It's not that I don't want to do them. It's a matter of, just time. We'll get them in eventually. Maybe this summer we can do a few more.
Yeah, I think we'll have a little bit more time in summertime. And
Yeah, so it's really a desire to, but that's one of the nice things about cons now, like when you were talking about in the earlier call about going to Chicago alone, you're not anymore because we've got friends everywhere now, which is really nice. And we do genuinely consider all of you that listen to the show friends, whether you post in the forum or not, like Lee was talking about, I don't post in the forum. There's a lot of, our forum listenership, the people that post in the forum, is a great part of our audience. It's a small part of our audience. And I enjoy the regular interaction with those guys and gals, too, that are in the forum. That forum base is, our fans that just like having that daily interaction. Not everybody has time for that. I've got people that I talk to on Facebook and things like that. It's nice to be able to have whatever, whether you call on voicemail, you participate in the forum, you just listen to the show, whatever, you're friends of ours, and we'd love to hang out with you at cons or wherever. And so I echo the segments of Donnie, and Donnie's an incredibly nice guy. Listen to Reality Wasted, check him out there, because he's a cool guy.
Yeah, it's a cool show.
Yeah, this is fun.
Hey there, Sean Seguin and Jim Whalen. It's Ian Levinstein from Comic Timing. I wanted to give your listeners a bit of a heads up that if they want to get further inside the head of Mr. Whatnot himself, look no further than After the Credits on the New York Comic Con episode of Comic Timing, because we get to learn a little bit of history about Jim that I'm not sure has come up on the show yet. I mean, sure, we know about James, but do we know the true story of everything Jim Seguin has gone through in his life? And what women think about him, and men. Anyway, just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And for Sean's benefit, I did read those issues of Green Arrow, Black Canary, and Titans that you were talking about. And Green Arrow, Black Canary, I'm still going to pick up. It's looking like it is shaping up a little bit. Still missing the fact that Connor and Mia aren't in the actual book anymore, but hopefully things will continue. Titans, however, still not really floating my boat. I'm going to give it until the end of this Jericho storyline, and I'll decide there what's going to happen or not. I mean, I haven't read the issue with the JLA crossover yet, but hopefully that'll woo me a little bit more. So yeah, just wanted to give you a heads up, and I will talk to you guys eventually. Bye.
I wonder how much of that he aired.
Well, here's the thing with me. I was asleep the entire time. That was all just me sleep talking.
Really?
Yeah, so I was not awake for any of that, so I have no conscious memory of anything that was said and should not be held against me in a court of law. Because
we were both just glad you were wearing pants.
Yeah,
that was funny. That was a fun night.
That was a midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning ranting going on. That just that was sleep deprivation.
Honestly, that seems to happen a lot when we hang out with Ian.
Yes.
The ambassador of Quan. It actually shows how comfortable we are with Ian. Because Ian definitely at this point is somebody I consider a very true friend.
Yeah,
and he's been a friend for years now. So I always enjoy when I get to hang out and chat with Ian. That's a very genuine thing, and it's always fun, and it's very relaxed, and he's a good guy. That's Ian Levinstein from Comic Timing, who is just being talked about before. So yeah, it's funny. He talks about Green Arrow, Black Canary. I'm glad that he found some enjoyment in because he wasn't sure about hanging on after Mia and Connor were gone. But I really do think that the book has gotten a new life. I really am enjoying the new life that this book has right now. I enjoyed it before, and there's something about it now. It has a new energy to it that I'm hoping that he's getting that as it continues on. Because are you still enjoying Green Arrow, Black Canary as much?
Oh, big time. Yeah,
it's a top of the stack.
Every issue, it just keeps growing and growing, and I'm just like, I was in the part of that team who did not want to see Team Arrow get split up, and now I see why they split up the team. It wasn't just a split up the team because we got a new creative team. No, they're telling a story. We're going more in depth into the Ale Dinah relationship.
Right.
And yes, you could do that with the others around, but when it's just the two of them, it'll really add the focus.
And it changes the dynamic tremendously, where you've really got to focus on what makes the two of them tick. It actually is true when you think about marriages in general. There's a difference between when the husband and wife are together and when the kids are there. A lot of times the kids become a part of the focus, and as there's a lot of the parenting aspect going on, and that's part of the connection between the parents at that point. Yeah. In the case of Green Arrow, Black Canary now, you get the husband and wife without that. where they've really got to deal with what their relationship is, and there's no distractions of other people. It's how are they interacting? What is holding them together? What are their differences? And how does that work out? And they've always had that kind of relationship. Dinah's very much her own woman, and Ollie very much is his own guy. And they sometimes march to the beat of a different drum, the two of them, and it always makes for interesting storytelling with them. And I'm enjoying that exploration quite a bit. So I'm glad that that's something that that's starting to grow on him. I hope it continues to the way that it is us, because I know I've been really enjoying that. I like that honest. That's one thing I love about Ian. You know, you have a conversation with him and he follows up on it, and he's great about that. We were talking about Green Arrow, Black Canary. We were also talking about Titans, and we're talking about the Winnick series. And that was one of those books you haven't heard me talk a whole lot about on the show, because I've been kind of, it's all right, you know, and it's been picking up for me, though. It's not I wouldn't put it at top of the stack right now, but I'm more and more interested in it now. This Jericho story, especially the Faces of Evil issue, was the one for me where it started to make a turn. The Justice League issue I thought was good.
Yeah,
it's becoming more of a solid book. It's a book, like I said, I haven't been interested in. I'm interested to see if this Death Trap story that's coming up, the one where it's Teen Titans, Titans, and then Vigilante, which I'm adoring, are all teamed up. It's funny, there's 2 series right now that are going to be involved with Titans that I think are just stellar. I'm wondering if that will be the kind of boost that Titans needs to kind of give it some momentum after that whole arc. Because it needs a little bit more of a kick to the pants. I think it's gotten it. It's heading in the right direction for me. It's like climbing upstairs right now. And it's about midway up the stairs for me at the moment. And I want it to get to the top again. That's where Teen Titans and Vigilante is for me right now. I'm really enjoying both of those books. I want Titans to get up to that level. It's not quite there yet.
Yeah, it's, with me, Titans before was on that list of, if something happened to my resources and I had to start dropping titles, Titans wasn't a definite drop, but it was on the potential. It was a consideration list. Yeah. Now it's off the consideration list. It's not as good. It's not on the level that Teen Titans is.
Right.
But it's getting there, and especially this last one that we had, where I was like, oh yeah, you're seeing more of the intrigue, more of the inner relationship between the Titans. It wasn't an action issue. There wasn't big bad fight scenes and explosions and whatnot, but it was a character development. And when you get
which is at the core of that book.
Yeah. When you get these cool character issues, that I'm like, yeah, that's what draws me in. That's what digs me in deeper to somebody.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see with Nightwing leaving now. That does put more members on the team that don't have their own solo books. So I think that'll be kind of an interesting aspect of the whole thing. So yeah, I don't know. It's a book that's climbing up my stack. It really is. Before I was with you, it was a lot further down on the stack. Now it's climbing back up again. It's gotten better. This Jericho stuff started getting interesting. So I hope that book continues to develop in the momentum. It's not Green Arrow, Black Canary for me, though. Huge difference between those two books.
Big difference, yeah.
To the Batmobile. Let's go.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
You're ready to move out.
Our next episode is going to be the mega epic Watchmen movie. I might split that up into 2 parts. I don't know how that's going to work out. It all depends on what it's like when we're recording, because we have a wonderful interview with Art Lyon that I want to start airing as well. So we're either going to do the Watchmen thing as one big omnibus episode, then jump to Art Lyon's, because I want to get this in because the Watchmen movie is very topical right now. Or we're going to split up the Watchmen into 2 segments and Art's in 2 segments and put them together, which I'm kind of leaning towards because it'd be kind of fun to have a little bit of Watchmen, a lot of Watchmen, a lot of Art. Because we got a 4-hour interview with Art, and then we got the Watchmen thing as well, so it'd be kind of 2 mega epic segments on the show. I don't know how we're going to air that in. I'll have to really think about it over this week as I begin editing it together and see what that looks like. So please check out the website and the forum for more details on how we're going to release that. But Watchmen, we're going to do Watchmen a little differently because of the fact that I'm aware that a lot of podcasts have either done or in the process of doing a Watchmen episode. So we really wanted to tackle it and dissect it the way that we do when we do movies and things like that. And we're doing some comparisons to the original work really is more focused on the original work. I thought I was going to do more to the motion comic, but it really is, the motion comic is the original work with motion added to it. So it really is a reference back to how scenes worked from the original work, what was missing, what was kind of moved around a little bit, and how that worked out, what we preferred from the movie, what we preferred from the original work, what we just kind of liked in both that was really great. I think it's kind of a fun way to chat about this film and talk about it. I also want to talk about the Watchmen video game. They have a video game out that's a prequel game that deals with Woodward and Bernstein. And some of the things that are hinted at with Underboss and stuff like that, it's a prequel in many ways. It involves the characters, the main players that you see in Watchmen. The characters you play as, though, are Rorschach and Night Owl. And it's a two-player game or a one-player game. And when you play the game as either player, it changes the gameplay because of their different MOs. So it's really interesting to see them together. It's a beat-em-up game, and I'll talk more about it next week. I'm like ready to go talking into it right now. I'm like, no, we got to wrap this up because I got to get a show out tonight. So I'll stop right now and just say that we're going to talk about that game more next week in there, because I could easily start going into another podcast right now. Hey, I was good, Jim. I caught myself. You saw me going, though, didn't you?
Dude, you were on the roll. You're getting ready to start the episode right now.
I know. Like, dun, dun, dun. Yeah. Welcome to Raging Bullets 154. We will save that for next week. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Want to remind you to pick up that comic podcast companion. $9.57 is the price on that bad boy, so go ahead and check that out. Brave and the Bold number 23. Time Traveler Booster Gold has seen countless possible futures, but futures don't get much darker than the one that will spawn the ruthless Magog. After the events of JSA Thy Kingdom Come, Magog has appeared in our time, and Booster will do whatever it takes to make sure his apocalyptic destiny never comes to pass. Regularly $2.99, 50% off only $1.49. I'm really excited for that issue, so I wanted to note that, especially when they got a 50% discount at DCB Service. If you're not reading Brave and the Bold, this is a time to grab that particular series. We're going to talk with Art Lyon about up to issue 22 of that book. That'll be a part of, you know what, let's make sure we do start talking about that next week. So that will be a part of next week. So it will definitely be Watchmen and Brave and the Bold. We'll split that up into two-part segments, and we'll do a little bit of both on each episode to really get that out there. Because I want to get that interview with Art out there because it was fantastic. So that'll be part of next week's show. The release date about that will be on the website and the forums as we go about. I'm shooting for Sunday, Monday. It all depends on what my work looks like. I'm trying to come back a little sooner because we came a little late with this one. So we'll see what that looks like. Probably leaning more towards Monday, but that'll be next week's show. Because I want to get Brave and the Bold up there. Art had a great interview with us, so let's get it out. Whatever your shipping preference, bag and boarding preferences, DCB Service accommodates your collecting needs. And In Stock Trades, don't forget to check out from In Stock Trades, Super Friends, For Justice trade paperback, first 7 issues. Regularly $12.99, 37% off, only $8.18. And that's a fun series. Have you been picking that one up? Or?
Actually, I'm still picking up. I read it, then pass it on.
Yeah, because this is one of those. It's a fun read. It actually is a great book. My kids love it. Thanks for supporting us, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. And Jim, we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
One of my great loves besides comics is classic film. Particularly, I love Disney movies. I love classic animation. I love, just it's a visual medium very similar to comics. I love that whole genre. So to talk about animation, we had Edward Summer on from Buffalo, New York, and we're going to be talking about some events that are going to be going on celebrating classic animation. This is something I already bought tickets to. My wife and I are going to both be attending. I'm a great big Disney fan. I know it's something that's outside of the Raging Bullets episodes, which is why I'm putting it on in the closing segment of the show. So that way, for people, it's outside of our topics. You got a full-blown episode already. This is something extra for you. But this is something I'm attending that I think is really cool, and to support it, I wanted to put this on this episode. So I hope you guys all enjoy this. It was a fun segment for us to record, and I hope there's something of value here for all of you, because it's very cool. But this is an event I'm definitely attending, and if anybody hears this and is planning on attending as well, shoot me an email, because I'd love to hook up with you. My wife and I are going to be there. We'd love to chat with you on it. So if you're in the Buffalo area, or you're going to be in the Buffalo area during this time, definitely let me know, because I'd love to hook up with you and chit-chat. Joining us is Edward Summer, president of the Buffalo International Film Festival. We talked briefly yesterday about the Mickey masterpieces and things like that that's going on there. Tell us a little bit about the Buffalo International Film Festival. What can people expect at the Buffalo International Film Festival?
We founded the Buffalo International Film Festival about 5 years, and we've been slowly but surely ramping it up to some very, very special events. Buffalo, as you probably don't know, is the site of the first movie theater in the world.
Wow.
It opened in Buffalo in October 1896. It was the first time anyone ever built a theater specifically only to show movies.
Wow. So there's a rich history here. It's the home of this. So
absolutely, Thomas Edison came to Buffalo in 1896 and made movies on the main street of Buffalo. And they came back in 1902 and shot film at the Pan American Exposition. You don't think of Buffalo, New York as being Little Hollywood, but it really has a very rich history. So the Buffalo International Film Festival is founded on a legitimate historical basis. I mean, what better place to have a film festival than in the city where movie theaters were invented?
Absolutely. We're both from Cleveland. And, similar to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the birth of Superman, there are areas that until, people started giving more notice to those things, they didn't know that, Cleveland was the home of such things. So I definitely feel what you're saying about Buffalo, and it's great to see some notice that's coming to that. Now, at the Buffalo International, what can people expect if they come to the Buffalo International Film Festival?
At the present time, we do 2 gala events every year. The April 2nd, 2009 Mickey Mouse Movie Masterpieces event is our spring event, and we're getting ready for an event in the fall that I can't really announce yet, but I will tell you it has to do with comedy.
Oh, good. Very good.
We also run the Buffalo Film Society. Buffalo International Film Festival is a 501c3 not-for-profit charity, so we have a number of not-for-profit and charitable activities in the region. We encourage filmmaking, and we do year-round film screenings of independent films, of Hollywood films, and films made by local filmmakers. We want to encourage kids and minority groups to make films and get them shown in professional venues.
That is awesome. I want to make sure that we get in here. It's buffalofilmfestival.com, and it's on MySpace at www.myspace.com/Buffalo INTL Film Fest. Those will be in our show notes and our website, so you don't have to worry about writing any of that down. Just go to our website, click on it, and head straight over there. So
we're also on Facebook.
Oh, great.
We're on Flickster. We're Twitterers. We're in Digit. We're on Delicious.
And on Twitter, it's Buffalo Film Fest. So that's
exactly
great.
Right. Yeah, we Twitter way too often, I think.
I'm a fan of
come
Disney.
Follow us.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Disney. So when I was taking a look here, I worked.
Yeah, actually, his name was originally spelled Ubbe.
Okay.
And his friends called him Ubby. But after a while, for professional purposes on the films themselves, he shortened it to UB. It's pronounced Iwerks, Iwerks, almost like an optometrist.
Right. He's one of those people that, back in the original Mickey cartoons, a lot of times people think of just Walt in relation to those, but he was so instrumental in the construction of the early black and white cartoons especially, and the rich history of Disney on there. So I'm thrilled. I'm watching here The Hand Behind the Mouse. You've got the Mickey Mouse Story, and Fantasia, which is one of my all-time favorite films because of the way that it merged in the orchestra music with just that wonderful, especially Night on Bald Mountain is one of my favorite pieces from that. So I'm looking at just the lineup of this, and it's an incredibly fun lineup.
We're showing the original 1940 roadshow version of Fantasia. The Walt Disney Company is sending us the studio archive print. It's a 35mm print with Dolby 6.1 sound, and we're showing it in a 1926 movie palace. Holds 3,000 people. It has a 40 by 70 foot movie screen. It's going to be absolutely incredible. Fantasia has not been shown in a movie theater since 1990. Wow. This will be the first time in 19 years. There are people literally planning to come from Bangalore, India, and from Bucharest, Romania to see this. because it's that hard to see this film.
Yeah, I saw it in 1990 back when it was re-released in 1990. I saw it in the theater because I wanted to see it on the big screen. So I got to be honest with you, I'm looking at this. I'm from Ohio. I'm looking at this. I'm kind of like, well, April 4th. It's a Saturday.
Buy your tickets in advance. They're available from the Shays box office if you live in or near Buffalo, but you can also buy them on Ticketmaster.
Okay.
You can go right to Ticketmaster if you search.
And they're on sale now?
They're on sale now.
Okay.
Yeah, tickets are on sale.
Cool.
We urge you, as soon as you hear this, go on to Ticketmaster.com and buy your tickets.
I think I may be beating them to the punch. Shays. Okay.
SHEAS.org.
Yeah. And Ticketmaster.com for those tickets, so please make sure to check those out. And I wish you a lot of success with this event. And I got to talk to my wife tonight. I think I might be attending it as well because I'm a huge Disney fan. My leather coat is all Disney and Mickey related. So
I want the people who are listening in to know that he's not really huge. He's a normal-sized person.
Yeah, they think I'm a very tiny person because they hear me coming out of a little box. But it's so anyway, I want to thank you so much, Edward. Edward, is there anything else you want to shout out before we wrap this up? Actually, I should ask you that first.
Well, we're very pleased to hear from filmmakers all over the world.
Okay.
If you have quality films that you would like to consider having shown in a very special place, go to our website. There's a form you can fill out. Let us know about your work. We encourage young filmmakers, middle-aged filmmakers, old filmmakers, any kind of people with really good films.
Wow. I like the idea that your goal is to go back to the roots of the industry and to really just bring back that creativity and that, the new freshness to it that is a part of the rich history of film.
Well, thank you. What's happened is that because of the internet and because of television sets, people's perception of movies has changed. They tend to see, if you watch streaming video online,
sure,
you might watch it in a window that's maybe 2 inches by 3 inches. But movies were intended to be seen on great big screens.
Yes.
And it's a completely different experience being in a theater surrounded by hundreds of people who are laughing or crying or being excited. It's not the same as sitting at home all by yourself and watching a movie. Presenting these Disney films so that you can see them with 2,000 other people is really a very, very special thing. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and we want to, as a film festival, present these kinds of opportunities going out into the future.
DC's doing these direct-to-DVD releases of animated films. Last night they premiered one here. Now, it's the first time I watched one of those movies in a room with a ton of people. And the experience, we both walked out saying that was our favorite one. I have to wonder if part of that was the experience of sharing that with other people and being able to see it on a larger screen, being able to laugh together, being able to hear other people's reactions to that whole thing. There was a community aspect to the whole event that I think you're 100% correct. It gets lost today. I'm a big fan of film. I always have been. We have independent theaters in my neighborhood that show independent films, foreign films, things like that don't normally hit the mainstream theaters. I'm also a fan of going to the mainstream movies as well. I think one of my biggest worries is that we're going to hit a generation where people aren't going to be able to see things on the big screen, where we're going to forget how important that event is to be able to see something larger than life and unfold in front of us. So I'm thrilled that there is an organization that's bringing that to the forefront, bringing the rich history back, telling people why it's important again. So you are nailing exactly something that as a film fan, I am excited to see brought back to people's attention.
Well, thank you. It's been a lot of work to get it done. You would think it would be easier, but in fact, the number of large theaters that exist are starting to dwindle down, and arranging to use them is not easy. And also making sure that the real film equipment is operating properly is also not easy. The particular theater we're using, Shays Buffalo, has real carbon arc projection. That's the most beautiful projection light that there is. When you go to the movies now, the theaters use xenon lamp houses. Xenon light is not full spectrum light. Carbon arc light is full spectrum white light. It's like sunlight. So when you see a color motion picture, especially Technicolor, projected with xenon, you're not really seeing the colors the way they were intended to be shown. If you come to see Fantasia in this theater, you will actually see Fantasia the way that Walt Disney and his company intended it to be seen in 1940, and the way that audiences actually saw it almost 80 years ago.
Wow, so it's a journey back to history where we actually get to be a part of it. I'm making phone calls tonight. Because literally, I got to just convince my wife that we've got to go do this. And Buffalo for me is, from Ohio, it's a little road trip, to come out. So I would definitely like to be a part of this event. I encourage any of our listeners out there to definitely visit the website, consider making a trek out and visiting this. I want to thank you again for the work that you're doing, because I get worried today. I'm a technology fan, obviously, by the fact that we're doing this on a podcast medium. But my biggest worry is with how much technology we have at home, we're forgetting how film is intended to be viewed by the filmmakers that are shooting it, and what they want that experience to be, what they want the sound quality to be, what they want that environment to be like. That's a consideration when people are making film, is that they're intending for you to sit to watch that in a communal group, to have it as a shared experience, to be able to walk out talking about it afterwards. And that's something, if we just watch film at home, there's nothing wrong with that, but if we just watch film at home, we are missing an important component of being a fan of film, is the community and being able to enjoy that aspect to it. And I want to thank you for what has to be hard work to bring that back to the forefront of the light, and especially on a 40-foot screen. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. So thank you very much for doing that work and for taking the time to chat with us about it.
Well, thank you for having us on. It was really fun.